In the shadow of a blood-soaked Dacian victory, a lone Roman legionary toils to rebuild a camp from the ashes of war, haunted by the ghosts of fallen comrades and razed villages. Can he carry the crushing weight of survival, forging Rome's empire while battling the scars within? Step into his world, where every stake-driven and grave-dug tests the limits of resilience. Story 1. The Endless March, Burden of the Pack Mule, Soldier. Imagine yourself, dear listener, stepping into the dust-choked roads of ancient Rome, not as a spectator, but as one of the empire's unyielding foot soldiers. You've just been conscripted into the Roman legion, perhaps from a quiet farm in Italia or a bustling port in Hispania. The year is around 100 AD, during the height of the Pax Romana under Emperor Trajan, when the legions stretched from the misty forests of Germania to the sun-baked sands of North Africa. But peace, as you quickly learn, is a misnomer. It's maintained through ceaseless movement, and your first real trial isn't the clash of swords, but the simple, monotonous act of marching. You wake before dawn in a temporary camp, the air thick with the scent of leather and sweat-soaked wool. Your centurion, a grizzled veteran with scars mapping his face like a campaign route, barks orders in clipped Latin. Form up, Marius mules, today, he shouts, referencing the reforms of Gaius Marius, a century earlier, who turned soldiers into self-sufficient beasts of burden. Before enlisting, you might have thought a legionary carried only his weapons: a short gladius sword, a pilum javelin, and a rectangular scutum shield. But no, your load is far heavier, designed to make the army mobile without cumbersome supply. Trains strapped to your back is a furca, a forked pole, like a wooden cross, from which hangs your sarcina personal kit, weighing up to 45 pounds, or about 20 kilograms. This includes a delabra, a versatile pickaxe for digging trenches, a patera cooking pan, a satchel of pasca, the vinegary wine-water mix that quenches thirst but sours your stomach, and enough grain for 3 days, ground into pools, porridge over campfires. Your armor adds another 20 pounds, the lorica, segmentata, overlapping iron, plates that chafe your shoulders, a heavy helmet that presses on your brow, and greaves that bind your calves. In total, you're hauling nearly half your body weight, assuming you're a fit 5'7" man of 150 pounds, the average for a Roman soldier. The march begins at first light, a column of 5,000 men snaking along Via Militares, those straight, engineered roads paved with stone and gravel for all-weather endurance. You cover 20 Roman miles a day, about 18 modern miles, a steady military pace. The passus militaris, 5 feet per step, synchronized by the hobnailed caligae boots clacking in unison. The centurion's vine staff hovers, ready to prod laggards. Breaks are brief. Every few hours, you halt to adjust straps or sip from your canteen. But idleness invites punishment. As the sun climbs, the burden intensifies. In the Mediterranean heat, sweat soaks your tunic, mixing with road dust to form a gritty paste. Your shoulders ache from the furca digging in. Blisters form on feet, unused to such rigor. Modern shoes, with their cushions, would seem a luxury here. Historical records, like those from Vegetes in his De Re Militari, describe how recruits were trained to march thrice monthly with full kit, building endurance for campaigns that could span provinces. Yet, it's the monotony that grinds you down, hour after hour. The landscape blurs. Olive groves give way to arid plains, punctuated by milestones marking distances to Rome. You think of home, but desertion means death by fustuarium, clubbed by comrades. The legion's strength lay in this relentless mobility. Armies conquered Dacia by marching 1,000 miles in months, building bridges and forts en route. But as evening approaches and your legs tremble, you wonder, how much farther can this go before something breaks your body or your will? You've survived the first day's march, dear listener, but as the sun dips below the horizon, there's no reprieve. The Roman legion doesn't simply stop when darkness falls. It transforms into a machine of disciplined labor. You're trudging along a Via Appia stretch, your legs heavy as lead, the furcapole biting deeper into your shoulders. The centurion's voice cuts through the twilight. Castra stativa, prepare the camp. You're not just a soldier, you're a builder, a digger, a cog in the empire's relentless wheel. The march was grueling, but now you face the second test of a legionary's life, constructing a fortified camp, a nightly ritual that turns a weary column into a defensible fortress. The site is chosen a flat hillock with a clear view of the surrounding plain, ideal for spotting enemies. You drop your sarcina, but relief is fleeting. Your delabra, that heavy pickaxe slung across your back, is now your lifeline. The legion's 5,000 men fan out in a choreographed dance. Each contuberniman 8-man tent group assigned specific tasks. You grab your tool and join your squad, hacking at the earth to carve a defensive ditch or vallum 3 feet deep and wide. The soil, baked hard by the summer sun, resists every swing, jarring your arms. The dirt you excavate is piled into a rampart topped with wooden stakes pila morelia carried in your kit. These form a palisade, transforming the camp into a square fortress, complete with 4 gates and watchtowers. Historical accounts, like those from Polybius, describe this process with mechanical precision. A Roman camp could be built in hours, even under threat. Each side of the square stretches about 2,000 feet, enclosing a grid of tent rows, officer quarters, and a central praetorium for the commander. Your tent, shared with 7 others, is a cramped leather affair, erected after you've dug your section of the ditch. You hammer stakes into the ground, your hands blistered, while others fetch water or gather firewood. The camp's layout is identical every night, so you could navigate it blindfolded, a testament to Rome's obsession with order. But the labor isn't the only burden. You're hungry, your stomach growling after a day of marching on a handful of pulls, porridge, and hard bucellum biscuit. Cooking is your responsibility. No servants tend the fires. You grind grain with a hand quern, mix it with water, and cook it over a smoky fire. Pasca, that sour vinegar wine, is your only drink. Its acidic bite doing little to lift your spirits. The centurion prowls, ensuring no one slacks. A misstep, like a poorly tied tent, flappers a lash from his vine staff, or worse, extra latrine duty as you sit by the fire. The camp hums with activity. Sentries, patrol, mules, bray, and armor clinks as men repair gear. You're exhausted, yet sleep feels distant. Your tentmates, a mix of Gauls, Syrians, and Italians, trade stories of home. But the language barrier latent is the army's tongue salicates you. The camps smells noshed bodies, latrine pits, and horse dunkling to your nostrils. You wonder how men endure years of this, some serving 25 years before retirement. Trajans, legions, fresh from Dacian campaigns, built thousands of such camps, each a temporary home in hostile lands. As you lie on your thin straw mat, staring at the tent's leather roof, your body aches and a question gnaws. How do you keep going when every day demands this same crushing routine? You've made it through the march and the camp's construction, dear listener, but the life of a Roman legionary offers no true rest. The dawn horn, the buccina, pierces the morning mist, pulling you from a fitful sleep on your straw mat. Your body protests, blisters throb, muscles ache, and the weight of yesterday's labor lingers like a shadow. Yet the legion waits for no one. You're back on the road, the furcapole once again digging into your shoulders, your sarcina swaying with every step. This is the third test, endurance, not just of body, but of spirit, as the endless march becomes a way of life. How did men survive this grind, you wonder, as the weeks blur into months? The Roman army's strength lay in its ability to outlast its enemies, not just in battle, but in the sheer tenacity of its movements. Historical records, like those from Appian's accounts of Trajan's Dacian wars, reveal legions marching thousands of miles across rugged terrain, building camps nightly, only to dismantle them at dawn. You're part of a cohort, one of 10. In a legion, each man a small piece of a vast machine. Your centurion, ever watchful, drills discipline into you. Stragglers risk flogging, or the Dacia, where 1 in 10 men is executed for unit failure. Fear keeps you moving, but so does camaraderie. Your tentmates, those gruff Gauls and Syrians, share their rations when yours spoil. A quiet bond forged in shared misery. The march takes you through provinces you've never seen. Illyricum's rocky hills, Pannonia's muddy plains. Each step tests your resolve. Your caligae boots, hobnails worn smooth. You learn survival, trick-stucking wool scraps under straps to ease the furca's bite, or chewing bucellum slowly to make it last. Vegetius notes that legionaries were trained to march 24 Roman miles in 5 hours under full load, a feat you now understand as brutal necessity. The empire's borders, stretching over 5,000 miles, demanded soldiers who could move fast and fight anywhere. Yet, it's the small, human moments that anchor you. During a rare halt, an older legionary teaches you to sharpen your gladius with a whetstone, his calloused hands steady despite years of service. You hear tales of veterans who earned citizenship or land after 25 years, though many died before discharge. The promise of a plot in a distant colony keeps you dreaming, even as your feet bleed. The legion's rhythm march, dig, eat, sleep become your pulse, a testament to Rome's genius in turning ordinary men into instruments of empire. As your first campaign season ends, you reach a garrison fort. The Roman legion's legacy, its ability to conquer through relentless mobility, shaped an empire that lasted centuries. Today, we marvel at Rome's roads and ruins, but they were built on the backs of men like you, whose names history forgot. Reflect on this. In a world of instant travel and comfort, could you endure the legion's grind? What does it reveal about the human capacity to adapt, to persist, when every step feels like a battle. Story 2. Disciplines, iron grip, punishments that broke men. You stand, dear listener, in the shadow of a Roman legion's camp, the year 100 AD, under Trajan's iron rule. The air is thick with dust and the sharp tang of fear. You're a new recruit, still raw from the march, your shoulders bruised from the furca's weight. But today, you'll learn that the Roman army's true power wasn't just its swords or roads, it was discipline, a force so rigid it could break men as easily as it forged them. The Legion, a machine of 5,000 souls, thrived on order, and any crack in that structure was met with punishments so severe they linger in historical texts like scars. Your centurion, a weathered man named Lucius, stands before your cohort, his vine staffer, symbol of his authority, gripped tightly. His eyes scan the ranks, and you feel the weight of his gaze. Yesterday, a soldier named Gaius, barely 19, was caught stealing extra bucellum from the camp's stores. Hunger gnaws at everyone, but theft undermines the legion's survival. Lucius recites the crime, his voice cold, referencing the leges militares. Gaius's punishment is to be announced, and you brace yourself, knowing the legion's justice is as much about deterrence as retribution. The Romans didn't coddle weakness. Discipline was the backbone of their conquests, from Britain's fog to Egypt's sands. Historical accounts, like those from Polybius and Livy, detail how the legions maintained order through fear. The mildest punishment might be a public humiliation. Gaius could be forced to stand outside the camp gates, stripped of armor, enduring jeers from passersby. But for theft, the penalty could escalate. You've heard whispers of the fustuarium, where a man is beaten to death by his comrades' clubs, a ritual to cleanse the unit's honor. Or perhaps he'll face flogging. You glance at Gaius, pale and trembling, tied to a post in the camp's central square. The legionaries around you stand rigid, their hobnailed boots rooted to the earth. A soldier's life was governed by rules: miss a watch, disobey an order, or flee in battle, and the consequences were dire. Even minor infractions, like neglecting your gladius's polish, could earn a night without rations or extra ditch-digging duty under the Mediterranean sun. The camp buzzes with tension. Gaius's fate will set an example, reinforcing the chain of command that stretches from your centurion to the emperor himself. You think of the legions, campaigns, Trajan's, Dacian wars, where disciplined ranks held against barbarian hordes, but discipline comes at a cost. You've seen men broken by fear of the vine staff, their spirits as battered as their bodies. Gaius's eyes meet yours, pleading, but you look away. To show sympathy risks your own punishment, as Lucius raises his staff, signaling the punishment to begin. You wonder, how does a man endure a system where one mistake could mean death? And loyalty to the legion outweighs loyalty to a friend. The punishment begins, dear listener, and the camp falls silent, save for Gaius's stifled cries. You stand among your cohort, the sun beating down, as Lucius orders a flogging 10 lashes with the flagellum. The whip's bone-tipped thongs gleam cruelly, and each strike draws blood, staining Gaius's tunic. You wince, but you dare not turn away. The centurion's eyes are everywhere. This is Rome's discipline in action, a spectacle to bind the legion tighter. Historical records, like those in Tacitus's Annals, describe such scenes as routine, designed to instill fear and unity. But as you watch, you feel the weight of this system pressing on your own resolve. Discipline wasn't just about punishment, it was a way of life. From the moment you swore the sacramentum, the oath binding you to the emperor, your existence was no longer your own. You train daily, drilling testudo formations or pilum throws until your arms burn. You clean your lorica segmentata armor nightly, knowing a speck of rust could earn a lashing. The centurion's vine staff, or vitus, is both symbol and telucius, uses it to prod slouches or strike those who falter. Vegetius notes that centurions were chosen for their unflinching severity, men who could command respect through fear. Lucius, with his scarred face and unyielding voice, embodies this ideal. Punishments varied by offense. Desertion or cowardice could trigger decimatio, a rare but horrifying act where 1 in 10 men chosen by lot was killed by their comrades. Lesser crimes, like falling asleep on watch, might mean castigatio, beating with fists, or the flat of a sword. Gaius's theft, born of hunger, wasn't uncommon. Legionaries lived on meager rations, and supply lines often faltered in distant provinces. Yet, the legion's survival hinged on shared sacrifice. Stealing disrupted the contubernium's trust, the 8-man unit that shared your tent and meals. Gaius's flogging, public and brutal, reminds you all the legion comes first. You notice the other soldiers' faces, some grim, others blank. A Gaul named Marcus, your tentmate, mutters about his village's milder justice, but he knows better than to speak loudly. The empire's diversity, from Iberians to Syrians, is its strength, but Latin and discipline unify you. Gaius's punishment isn't just about him. You'll move soon, leaving Gaius to recover or not. Tent, where infection often claims the weak. As the flogging ends, Gaius slumps, bloodied but alive. Lucius declares his kit confiscated, his rations halved for a month. You feel a flicker of relief he's spared the fustuarium, but also dread. You've seen men survive lashes, only to break under the shame, shunned by comrades. The legion's discipline builds an empire, but it grinds down individuals. Trajan's legions conquered Dacia through such rigidity. Yet you wonder about the cost to men like Gaius, or even yourself, as you hoist your sarcina for the next march. A question lingers. Can you withstand this relentless system, where every misstep invites punishment, and survival demands absolute submission? Gaius's punishment is over, dear listener, but its echo lingers as you march again, the familiar weight of your furca grinding into your shoulders. The legion moves north, toward the Danube, where Trajan's campaigns press against Dacian tribes. You've seen discipline's iron grip in action, but the cost is etched in Gaius's scars and the wary glances of your tentmates. The Roman army's strength, built on fear and order, shaped empires, but it left broken men in its wake. How did they endure, and what does their resilience teach us? You march, build camps, and drill, each task reinforcing the chain of command. Historical texts, like Suetonius's Lives, describe centurions as the backbone of this system. Men like Lucius, who enforced rules with unrelenting precision. Punishments weren't random cruelty. They were calculated to maintain cohesion. Gaius, now limping at the column's rear, is a living reminder. His flogging wasn't just for theft, but to deter others. You've learned to check your kit twice. to share rations quietly to avoid the centurion's notice. Marcus the Gaul slips Gaius extra Pascha one night, risking his own punishment. The contubernium, your 8-man unit, becomes a family of necessity, sharing burdens and secrets. You learn to read Lucius's moods. When his staff twirls, he's lenient. When it's gripped tight, beware. Discipline didn't just punish, it rewarded. A soldier who stood firm in battle might earn a philera, a bronze medallion, or extra pay. Trajan himself, chronicles note, walked among troops, rewarding valor to balance fear. This duality, punishment and praise, kept the legions loyal through decades of service. Gaius recovers slowly, his wounds healing but his spirit dimmed. Some men, you hear, turn inward, becoming model soldiers. Others crumble, deserting only to face death if caught. The legion's records, preserved in inscriptions, show thousands served 25 years, earning citizenship or land. But many, like Gaius, faced a bleaker fate: disability, poverty, or death before retirement. The empire's glory, its vast roads and aqueducts, rested on their sacrifices. Discipline ensured victory, but at a human cost we rarely ponder. As you reach the Danube fort, the march halts. You're assigned to guard duty, standing under stars, your gladius heavy at your side. You think of Gaius, of Lucius, of the empire's relentless demands. Discipline made Rome endure, its legions conquering half the known world. Today, we see its ruins, colosseums, walls, roads, and marvel. But those were built by men who lived under the vine staff's shadow, their lives shaped by a system both brutal and brilliant. Reflect on this. In our world of freedom and choice, could you submit to such discipline? The Romans' resilience, their ability to endure punishment for a greater cause, built an empire. What does it reveal about the balance between order and individuality? And how do we navigate that tension today? Story 3. Camp life drudgery. Building forts from dawn to dusk. Picture yourself, dear listener, in the year 100 AD, standing on a windswept plain in Germania, a newly minted legionary in Trajan's army. The Roman Empire thrives, its legions stretching across continents. But for you, glory is a distant dream. Your reality is the relentless drudgery of camp life, where every day begins and ends with labor that tests your endurance. The march has brought you to this muddy field, and now your task is to transform it into a fortified castra, a temporary home for 5,000 men. This isn't the clash of swords or the triumph of conquest. It's the slow, grinding work that makes the legion's campaigns possible. As dawn breaks, the buccina horn signals the start of your day. Your centurion, a stern figure named Quintus, shouts orders, his vine staff tapping the ground. You're part of a contubernium, an 8-man unit sharing a leather tent, and your squad is assigned to dig the vallum, the defensive ditch encircling the camp. Your delabra, the pickaxe carried on your furca during the march, is now your constant companion. The soil here is heavy, laced with roots, and each swing sends a jolt through your blistered hands. Historical accounts, like those from Polybius, describe Roman camps as marvels of engineering: square, precise, defensible, but you're learning the cost of that precision. The camp's layout is a ritual repeated nightly. You dig a ditch, 3 feet deep and wide, piling the earth into a rampart topped with wooden stakes from your kit. The square enclosure, roughly 2,000 feet per side. Houses, tents, officer quarters, and a central command post. Your squad works in silence, save for grunts and the clink of tools. The centurion watches, quick to lash out at sloppy work. You're not just building a camp. You're fortifying Rome's presence in hostile lands where Germanic tribes could strike at any moment. Trajans, legions, fresh from Dacian victories, relied on such forts to secure supply lines and project power beyond. Digging, your day is filled with tasks. You haul timber for gates, sharpen stakes, or carry water from a nearby stream. The legion's self-sufficiency amazes you. Every man contributes, from legionaries to auxiliary troops. Your tentmate, a Syrian named Decimus, teaches you to tie knots for the tent's guy ropes, his deft hands a contrast to your fumbling. Hunger gnaws. Lunch is a hurried bowl of Pole's porridge, cooked over a fire you built. The camp smells of sweat, smoke, and latrine pits, a reminder of the unglamorous life you've entered. As the sun climbs, your muscles scream, and the camp is only half built. You think of home, a farm in Hispania, perhaps where labor was hard but carried the comfort of family. Here, you're one of thousands, bound by duty and the threat of punishment. The legion's camps, described in Vegetus's De Re Militari, were its lifeline, enabling campaigns across vast distances. But as you wipe sweat from your brow, you wonder, how long can you endure this daily grind, where every task feels endless and the camp's walls are both protection and prison? The sun hangs high now, dear listener, and the camp's skeleton is taking shape. But your work as a legionary in Trajan's army is far from done. The ditch you've dug with your contubernim is nearly complete, its earthen walls rising under the watchful eye of Quintus, your centurion. Your hands, raw from the Delabra's handle, ache as you hammer stakes into the rampart, each blow echoing the legion's unyielding rhythm. This camp, a temporary fortress in Germania's wilds, is a testament to Rome's discipline, but it's built on the sweat of men like you, whose lives are consumed by tasks that history rarely celebrates. Every detail of the camp follows a blueprint etched into the legion's collective memory. Historical sources, like Josephus's accounts of Roman sieges, praise the camp's uniformity. Identical layouts, whether in Gaul or Judea, ensured efficiency. Your squad erects the leather tent you'll share, its goatskin heavy and stiff from use. You pound pegs into the ground, aligning the tent with the camp's grid of streets. Via Praetoria, Via Principalis, named like a city's avenues. The precision is staggering. 5,000 men, auxiliaries, and mules fit within this square, with room for a hospital, granary, and latrines. You marvel at the planning, but the labor leaves you hollow. Your next task is fetching water, a mile's trek to a stream. You carry leather buckets, your lorica segmentata armor chafing despite the wool tunic beneath. The legion's water supply is critical. Men, horses, and cooking depend on it. Decimus, your Syrian tentmate, grumbles about the weight, his accent thick but his humor sharp. You learn survival tricks, wrapping cloth around bucket handles to ease the strain, or sipping posca sparingly to stretch rations. The camp's smells dung, smoke, and unwashed bodies grow stronger as you return, pouring water into clay vats. Quintus assigns you to latrine duty next, a task dreaded by all. You dig pits at the camp's edge, following strict sanitation rules to prevent disease. Tacitus notes that poor hygiene could decimate legions faster than battle, and you see why. The pits reek and flies swarm. You work quickly, hoping to avoid the centurion's vine staff. Breaks are rare. Lunch was a fist-sized lump of bucellum, the hard biscuit that grinds your teeth. You're hungry, tired, and coated in dust, yet the camp must be finished before nightfall. As evening nears, the camp takes shape. Gates rise, sentries are posted, and fires glow. You share a moment with Decimus, grinding grain for tomorrow's polls. He speaks of his home in Antioch, a city of markets and warmth, and you wonder if you'll ever see your own again. The legion's camps, built and dismantled daily, enabled Rome to conquer vast territories, from Dacia to Britannia. But the cost is clear. Every man is a laborer, bound to this cycle of toil. As you collapse onto your straw mat, the camp quiet. But for the crackle of fires, a question gnaws. How do you keep going when each day's labor feels like it could crush you, and the next camp is just another march away? Night has fallen, dear listener, and the camp stands complete. A fortress carved from Germania's earth by your hands and those of your fellow legionaries. The year is 100 AD, and Trajan's legions are a force of order in a chaotic world. You lie on your thin straw mat, the leather tent above you creaking in the wind. Your body aches, blisters from the delabra, bruises from the armor's weight, but the camp's walls offer a fleeting sense of safety. The drudgery of camp life, this endless cycle of building and breaking, has shaped you, just as it shaped Rome's empire. But what did it mean to live this way? And what legacy did it leave? The camp's routine is unrelenting. Dawn will bring the buccina's call, and you'll dismantle what you've built, packing tents and stakes for the next march. Historical records, like Caesar's Gallic Wars, describe legions erecting thousands of camps, each a temporary stronghold that secured Rome's grip on distant lands. Your Contubernium, led by Decimus's quiet competence, has become your anchor. You share tasks, sharpening tools, repairing boots, cooking meager meals, and stories of home. Decimus teaches you to weave a straw mat tighter, easing your sleep. These small acts of camaraderie, forged in toil, keep you sane. The camp's engineering is a marvel. Its ditches and ramparts, built in hours, could repel a surprise attack. You've seen auxiliary archers practice on the ramparts, their arrows, a reminder of the threats beyond. Quintus, your centurion, drills efficiency. A misaligned tent peg earns a sharp rap from his vine staff. Yet, you've learned to anticipate his orders, to move faster, to endure. The legion's camps, standardized across the empire, allowed armies to move swiftly from the Rhine to the Euphrates. They were Rome's arteries, pulsing with discipline and labor. But the toll is heavy. Your hands, once soft, are calloused. Your back stoops from carrying water and timber. You hear of men who collapse, sent to the valetudinarium, the camp hospital, where fever claims many. The promise of retirement land or coin after 25 years feels distant. Inscriptions from Roman forts, like those at Vindolanda, reveal soldiers' lives, complaints of short rations, requests for socks, dreams of home. You, too, dream of your Hispania farm, but desertion means death by the camp, both refuge and cage, binds you to the legion. as you stand guard under the stars. Your gladius at your side, you reflect on Rome's legacy. These camps, built by countless hands, enabled an empire to span 3 continents. Today, we walk their ruined stone forts, like Hadrian's wallland, marvel at their scale. But they were born of men like you, whose labor history forgot. The drudgery you endured, the forts you built, were the empire's foundation. Ponder this. In our age of machines and ease, could you match the resilience of these legionaries? Their ability to toil day after day, building empires from mud and sweat, speaks to a human capacity for endurance. What does it teach us about the unseen labor that shapes our world, then and now? Story 4. Rations and Hunger. Surviving on sour wine and hard bread. You were a legionary in Trajan's army. Dear listener, stationed in a dusty camp in Pannonia, 100 AD, the Roman Empire's might is unquestioned, its legions conquering from Britannia to Mesopotamia. But for you, survival hinges on something far less glamorous than battles: food. Your days are filled with marches and ditch digging, but it's the gnawing hunger in your gut that defines your existence. The legion's rations, meager and monotonous, are your lifeline, and learning to live on them is a test as grueling as any campaign. Welcome to the world of pools, Bucellum and Posca, where every meal is a lesson in endurance. Each morning, you wake to the bucina's call, your stomach already rumbling. Your contubernum, the 8-man unit sharing your tent, pools its rations, distributed weekly by the quartermaster. You're allotted about 1 kilogram of grain, usually immer wheat, enough for 3 days of pulls, a thick porridge that's the legion's staple. There's also bucellum, a rock-hard biscuit baked twice to last weeks, and a small ration of posca, a mix of vinegar, water, and herbs that passes for a drink. Meat is rare, perhaps a sliver of salted pork or bacon, and vegetables or cabbage depend on local supplies. Historical records, like those from Apicius, note that legions relied on grain, with luxuries like olive oil or cheese reserved for officers. You sit by the campfire, grinding grain with a hand quern, a tedious task that blisters your palms. The pulse you cook is bland, gritty, and barely fills you. Bucellum, tougher than leather, must be soaked in posca to chew without breaking a tooth. Posca itself is a sour, acidic brew meant to hydrate and kill waterborne germs, but it sours your mood as much as your stomach. You've heard of Trajan's Dacian campaigns, where supply lines stretched thin, leaving men to scavenge wild herbs or barter with locals. Here, in Pannonia, supplies are steadier, but hunger is constant. Your tentmate, a wiry Illyrian named Titus, shows you tricks. Mix pulls with a pinch of salt for flavor, or hide bucellum in your satchel to avoid theft. Hunger drives desperate, axe-stealing rations, risks flogging. As you've seen, the legion's logistics, described in Vegetus's De Re Militari, were a marvel, with granaries and supply trains feeding thousands across provinces. But for you, it's personal. Every meal is a calculation, every bite stretched to last. As you choke down another spoonful of lukewarm pulse, you notice the centurion, Quintus, inspecting the camp. A spilled ration could mean a lashing, so you guard your portion fiercely. The empire's strength rests on men like you, fed just enough to march and fight. But as your stomach growls and the fire dies, you wonder, how do you endure when hunger is your constant companion and the next meal is just more of the same. The sun climbs higher, dear listener, and you're back on duty in the Pannonia camp, your hunger unabated. The legion's rhythm march, build, eat, sleep continues, but food remains the thread that binds your survival. You've just finished a morning of digging latrines, your arms heavy, your stomach a hollow pit. The rations you rely on, those meager portions of pools, bucellum and pasca, are doled out with military precision, but they're never enough. In Trajan's army, circa 100 AD, the empire's vast supply network keeps the legions fed. Yet for you, every day is a battle against hunger's slow grind. Your contubernium gathers around the fire to prepare the midday meal. You take turns with the quern, grinding wheat into coarse flour. The process is slow, and the dust sticks to your sweat-soaked tunic. Titus, your Illyrian tentmate, suggests roasting the grain lightly to mask its staleness, a trick from his village. The pulse you cook is watery, stretched to feed 8 men, and you add a few wild onions foraged nearby, a rare treat. Bucellum, the hard biscuit, is your backup, but chewing it feels like gnawing stone. Pasca, poured from a shared flask, burns your throat with its vinegary bite. Historical texts, like Pliny's Natural History, mention pasca's use to purify water, but to you, it's a bitter necessity. The legion's supply system is a marvel of logistics. Inscriptions from forts like Vindolanda detail requisitions: grain from Egypt, wine from Gaul, oil from Hispania. Trajan's legions, campaigning in Dacia, relied on such networks to feed 50,000 men across continents. But supply lines falter in war-torn regions, and you've heard tales of soldiers boiling leather straps for broth. Here, your luckier carts arrive weekly with sacks of grain, but spoilage is common. Moldy wheat or weevil-ridden bucellum forces you to pick through rations, salvaging what you can. Hunger shapes camp life. You've seen men barter sandals for a handful of lentils, or risk punishment for stealing from the granary. Titus warns you to hide your bucellum under your mat. Last week, a Gaul was flogged for pilfering. Quintus enforces strict rules. Rations are sacred, their loss a threat to the legion's strength. You learn to eat quickly, guarding your bowl, and to savor small victories, like finding a stray fig in a supply crate. As you scrape the last of your pulls from the patera, you feel the familiar ache of hunger returning. The legion's discipline, its ability to march on empty stomachs, built Rome's empire. But for you, it's personal. Each meal is a fleeting reprieve, each day a test of willpower. You think of home, where bread was soft and wine sweet, and wonder if you'll ever taste such things again as you prepare for the afternoon's tasks. A question lingers. How do you keep marching, keep fighting, when hunger gnaws at your strength, and the promise of a full meal feels like a distant dream? Evening falls over the Pannonia camp, dear listener, and you sit by the fire, your hunger, a dull ache that never fully fades. The day's labor hauling water, repairing ramparts, has left you drained, yet the legion's rations remain your only fuel. In 100 AD, Trajan's army marches on, its conquests built on the resilience of men like you, who survive on pools, bucellum, and pasca. These meager meals, and the strategies you've learned to stretch them, reveal the human cost of Rome's glory. How did legionaries endure, and what does their survival teach us about perseverance? You've adapted to hunger's rhythm. Titus, your Illyrian tentmate, shares a trick. Soak bucellum in posca overnight to soften it, saving your teeth. You've learned to hoard scraps, wrapping them in cloths to fend off rats. The contubernium, your 8-man unit, becomes a pact of survival. Leechman shares what little he has, a lentil stew or a crust of bread to keep the group strong. Historical records, like those from Tacitus, note that legions could march for weeks on minimal rations, their discipline turning hunger into a weapon. Trajan's Dacian campaigns succeeded because soldiers endured where enemies faltered. But hunger takes a toll. Your body, once sturdy, feels leaner. Your lorica segmentata hangs looser. You've seen men weaken, their eyes dull, sent to the valetudinarium for malnutrition or fever. The promise of retirement land or coin after 25 years drives you, but many don't survive the service. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' pleas for better food, their letters home filled with longing for olives or fish sauce. You too dream of your family's table, where meals were shared, not rationed. The legion's strength lay in its ability to function despite scarcity. You've learned to forage wild garlic, berries when supplies dwindle. Quintus, the centurion, inspects rations daily, ensuring no waste, but he's not heartless. Once, he slipped your squad extra barley after a grueling march, a rare act of mercy. The empire's logistics, feeding millions from Britain to Syria, were a triumph of planning. But for you, it's about survival, one meal at a time, one day at a time. As you sip the last of your pasca, its sourness familiar now, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The empire's roads, aqueducts, and victories were built by men who marched on empty stomachs, their hunger a silent sacrifice. Today, we admire Rome's grandeur, but rarely consider the soldiers who starved for it. Their resilience, their ability to endure scarcity, made history. Ponder this: in our world of abundance, could you survive on such meager fare? The legionaries' tenacity, their ability to thrive despite hunger, speaks to a human capacity to adapt. What does it reveal about the unseen struggles that underpin great achievements? And how do we honor those who endure them, then and now? Story 5. Training's brutal regime. Sword drills until collapse. You find yourself, dear listener, in a sprawling training ground near a Roman fort in Mysia, 108, under Trajan's unyielding reign. You're a fresh recruit in the legion, your body still unaccustomed to the weight of the lorica segmentata armor or the hobnailed caligae boots. The empire's legions are feared, their victories in Dacia and beyond legendary, but the path to becoming a legionary is a grueling gauntlet of training that breaks as many as it builds. Today, you face the relentless sword drills that define a soldier's worth, a test of endurance and precision that could mean survival or death on the battlefield. The sun hasn't yet risen when your centurion, a grizzled veteran named Alias, rouses your cohort with a bark. To the field, gladius, ready, he commands, his vine staff swinging like a metronome. You clutch your gladius, a short, double-edged sword, heavier than it looks at 2 pounds. Training, as Vegetius describes in De Re Militari, is the legion's foundation. Recruits drill thrice monthly, veterans weekly, to hone skills. Your task is simple but brutal. Strike a wooden post, a palus, with precise thrusts and slashes, mimicking combat. Each blow must land exactly, or Aelius's staff corrects you with a sharp rap. you stand in formation. 80 men in your century, facing rows of oak posts driven into the earth. The Payless is your enemy, unyielding as any Dacian warrior. You thrust center, left, right, following Aelius's rhythm. Sweat stings your eyes, and your arm burns after a dozen strikes. The gladius, designed for close quarters stabbing, demands control. A sloppy swing earns shouts, or worse. Historical records, like those from Polybius, note that Roman training was merciless, weeding out the weak. You've seen recruits collapse, sent to the valetudinarium, or discharged in shame. Your contubernium, the 8-man tent unit, includes a Briton named Caradoc, who mutters about his tribe's looser fighting style. But Rome's discipline is different. Every move is standardized. You drill in the testudo, the shield wall formation, your scutum shield, locked with others, heavy at 15 pounds. Aelius paces, shouting corrections, shields up, gaps, kill. You learn to march in step, to throw a pilum javelin 20 meters, to endure mock battles under the Balkan sun. Breaks are brief, with sips of pasca and bites of bucellum, the hard biscuit that fuels you. The training ground smells of dust, sweat, and pine from the Payless. Your hands blister, your shoulders ache, and Aelius's voice never softens. The legion's strength, its ability to crush enemies from Gaul to Parthia, rests on this rigor. But as you strike the Payless again, your vision blurring, you wonder, how much longer can you push before your body or spirit gives out? And what does it take to become the soldier Rome demands? The sun climbs higher over the Mysian training ground. Dear listener, and your sword drills continue, each thrust into the Payless a test of will. It's 100 AD, and you're a legionary recruit under Trajan's banner. Your body pushed to its limits by the relentless training regime. Your centurion, Aelius, stalks the field, his vine staff ready to punish hesitation. The gladius in your hand feels heavier with every strike, and your lorica segmentata armor, though protective, chafes your sweat-soaked skin. This is the legion's crucible, where men are forged into soldiers or broken by the effort. Training isn't just about the sword. Aelius orders you into formation drills, practicing the orbis, a circular defense for ambushes, and the cuneus, a wedge to break enemy lines. You hoist your scutum shield, its curved wood a burden after hours of use. The testudo formation, where shields lock into a turtle-like shell, is grueling. One misstep, and Aelius's staff finds your back. Historical accounts, like those in Cassius Dio, praise Roman training for its realism. Mock battles mimic the chaos of war. You've sparred with Caradoc, your Briton tentmate, using wooden swords twice the gladius's weight to build strength. A glancing blow leaves your arm bruised, but pain is a teacher. You also train with the pilum, the javelin designed to bend on impact, thwarting enemy shields. Throwing it accurately while wearing 20 pounds of armor is exhausting. Aelius demands 20 throws, each hitting a straw target 15 meters away. Miss, and you run laps around the camp, your caligae boots pounding the earth. Vegetius notes that recruits marched 24 Roman miles with full kit, and you feel that legacy in your aching legs. The legion's success in Trajan's Dacian wars hinged on such preparation, turning farmers into warriors who could outlast any foe. Breaks are scarce. You gulp pasca, its sour tang barely quenching your thirst, and chew bucellum, its hardness a reminder of hunger. Caradoc shares a trick. Breathe deeply between thrusts to save energy. The contubernum bonds over shared struggle, whispering complaints about Aelius when he's out of earshot. But his vigilance is unrelenting. A dropped shield means digging. Latrines at dusk. The training ground, littered with straw and broken pylon shafts, is your world now. Its dust coating your lungs. As noon passes, Aelius announces a mock battle tomorrow, full kit, no mercy. You've heard of recruits who falter, sent home or worse, left to die in the valetudinarium from exhaustion. The legion's strength, its ability to conquer vast territories, rests on this brutal preparation. But as your muscles scream and your vision swims, a question gnaws. Can you endure this regime long enough to become a true legionary, or will it break you first? Dusk settles over the Mysian training ground, dear listener, and you collapse onto your straw mat, every muscle screaming from the day's drills. It's 100 AD and Trajan's legions are honing men like you into weapons of empire. The sword, drills, formation, marches, and pylon throws have left you battered. But you're beginning to understand the legion's brutal training regime. This is the final test, not just surviving the drills, but internalizing the discipline that made Rome's armies unstoppable. How did these men endure, and what does their resilience reveal about the human spirit? The mock battle at dawn is your proving ground. You rise, donning your lorica segmentata and gripping your gladius, its edge now familiar. Aelius pits your century against another, wooden swords clashing in a chaotic scrum. You lock shields in the testudo, feeling Caradoc's shoulder beside you, his Briton grit steadying your nerves. The formation holds against a barrage of blunted pila, and you thrust at enemies. Your training instinctive now. Aelius watches, noting who falters. Victory earns a nod. Failure means extra drills. Historical records, like Suetonius's accounts, show that such training forged legions capable of crushing Dacian hordes or quelling Judean revolts. The regime's brutality has a purpose. Your body, once soft, is leaner, your hands calloused. From the pales, you've learned to move as one with your cohort, to anticipate Aelius's commands. Caradoc teaches you to wrap cloth around your wrist for better grip, a small act of camaraderie. The contubernum, your 8-man unit, is your lifeline, sharing posca patching wounds, trading stories of home. Yet, the cost is clear. Some recruits, overwhelmed, collapse, or desert, facing death by fastorium. Inscriptions from Roman forts reveal soldiers' pride in surviving training, but also their pleas for rest. The legion's training wasn't just physical. It built a mindset: obedience, endurance, unity. You've seen weaker men transform, their fear replaced by resolve. Trajan's armies, disciplined to perfection, conquered empires because every soldier was drilled to act without hesitation. Your own transformation is incomplete, but each drill brings you closer. The gladius feels lighter, the scutum less cumbersome. Aelius, stern but fair, slips your squad extra bucellum after a strong showing, a rare gesture that fuels hope as you stand guard under the stars, your gladius at your side. You reflect on Rome's legacy, the training ground, with its battered posts and straw-strewn earth, was the crucible for an empire that spanned centuries. Today, we study Roman tactics, marveling at their precision, but rarely consider the men who endured such trials. Their resilience, forged in sweat and pain, built a world. Ponder this. In our age of comfort, could you withstand such relentless training? The legionaries' ability to endure, to become instruments of empire, speaks to a human capacity for transformation. Story 6. The weight of armor, heat, rust, and constant where you stand. Dear listener, in a Roman camp in Syria, 100 AD, under Trajan's expansive rule, the desert sun scorches the earth, and you, a legionary, feel its heat magnified by the armor encasing you. The lorica segmentata, the iconic iron-plated armor of Rome's legions, is your protection but also your burden. As you prepare for a patrol along the Euphrates, you're learning that a soldier's life isn't just about battles or march. It's about enduring the relentless weight of armor, a constant companion that shapes your every move. This is the untold struggle of the legionary, where survival means carrying a second skin through heat, dust, and time. Your day begins at dawn, the buccina's call rousing you from your tent. You dan the lorica segmentata, its overlapping iron plates, 20 pounds of metal strapped over a wool tunic. The armor, designed for flexibility and protection, covers your torso, shoulders, and upper arms, but its weight presses on your frame. A heavy helmet, the cassis, adds another 5 pounds, its cheek guards chafing your jaw. Greaves protect your shins, and a belt, the cingulum, holds your gladius and pugio dagger. In total, you carry nearly 30 pounds of gear, not counting your scutum shield or marching pack. Historical texts, like Fagetis's De Re Militari, note that legionaries trained to bear such loads. But the reality is grueling. The Syrian heat is merciless, pushing temperatures past 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Sweat soaks your tunic, trapped beneath the iron plates, and the lorica's edges dig into your shoulders. You march with your contubernium and 8 unit under the watchful eye of your centurion, Sextus. The armor clanks with each step, its sound a constant reminder of your role. Trajan's legions, campaigning from Dacia to Parthia, relied on this armor to deflect swords and arrows. But it's a double-edged gift. The plates, forged in camp workshops, rust in the humid river air, requiring nightly scrubbing with sand and oil. Your tentmate, a Thracian named Zeno, shows you how to adjust the leather straps to ease the chafing, but relief is temporary. The armor's fit is never perfect, standardized for efficiency, not comfort. You've seen men with raw, blistered skin, their tunics stained with blood from abrasions. The legion's strength, its ability to field disciplined, armored ranks, awed enemies, as Arrian's accounts of Roman tactics describe. But for you, it's a daily trial, marching, drilling, standing guard, all under the armor's unyielding weight as you trudge through the dust. The lorica growing heavier with each mile, you feel the strain in your knees and back. The empire's glorious conquests, its borders stretching thousands of miles, rests on men like you, armored and enduring. But as the sun climbs and your helmet traps the heat, a question burns. How do you carry this weight day after day when every step feels like a battle against your own armor? The sun blazes overhead in the Syrian camp, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, feel the lorica segmentata's weight as a constant foe. It's 100 AD, and you're on patrol along the Euphrates, the desert air thick with dust that clings to your armor's iron plates. The lorica, your shield against Parthian arrows, is also your tormentor. It's 20 pounds of metal amplifying the heat and chafing your skin raw. This isn't the clash of battle or the rhythm of a march, it's the slow, grinding ordeal of wearing armor that never relents, a burden that tests your endurance as much as any enemy. Your centurion, Sextus, leads the patrol, his vine staff tapping out a pace. You carry your scutum shield, 15 pounds of layered wood, and a pilum javelin, adding to your load. The lorica's plates, fastened with leather straps, shift slightly as you move, pinching your sides. Zeno, your Thracian tentmate, taught you to pad your shoulders with wool scraps, but the relief is fleeting. The helmet's iron rim presses into your forehead, and sweat pools inside, stinging your eyes. Historical accounts, like those in Tacitus's histories, describe Roman soldiers as ironclad juggernauts, but they rarely mention the toll, blisters, heat exhaustion, and the constant need for maintenance. After hours on patrol, you return to camp, but the armor's demands don't end. Rust is the enemy. Here, Syria's humid nights corrode the iron plates. You spend evenings scrubbing your lorica with sand and olive oil, a task as vital as drilling. Neglect it, and Sextus will notice. A rusted lorica means a lashing or extra guard duty. The camp's fabrica, a workshop buzzing with smiths, repairs damaged plates, but you're responsible for daily care. Zeno jokes about polishing armor until it gleams like a senator's toga, but the work is tedious. Your hands stained with oil and grit. The physical toll mounts. Your back aches from the lorica's weight. Your knees strain under the load. You've seen men collapse on marches, their armor dragging them down. The Legion's medical tent, the valetudinarium, treats heatstroke and infections from chafed wounds. Yet, the lorica's protection is undeniable. Trajan's legions survived Dacian phalanxes because of it. You learn to endure, tightening straps to distribute weight, moving deliberately to save energy. Your contubernium shares tricks. Sleep with your helmet as a pillow to keep it safe, or use a cloth sling to ease the scutum's grip as you clean your armor by the campfire, the iron plates reflecting the flames. You feel the Legion's paradox. The armor makes you invincible, but binds you to suffering. Rome's empire, spanning 3 continents, was built by men who carried this weight daily. But as your shoulders throb and another patrol looms, a question lingers. How do you keep moving under this burden when the armor that saves you also threatens to break you? Night falls over the Syrian camp, dear listener, and you sit by the fire, your lorica segmentata finally off, its iron plates stacked beside you. It's 100 AD, and Trajan's legions push Rome's borders ever eastward. The armor, your shield in a hostile world, has left its mark. Your shoulders are bruised, your skin raw where straps dug in. The weight of the lorica helmet and scutum has become part of you, a second skin you've learned to bear through patrols and drills. But this burden and the resilience it demands shaped the men who built Rome's empire. What did it mean to live under this weight, and what does their endurance teach us? You've adapted to the armor's demands. Zeno, your Thracian tentmate, showed you 2 oil hinges daily, preventing squeaks that could betray a night march. You've learned to walk with a slight lean, easing the lorica's pressure on your spine. Your contubernium, the 8-man unit, shares the load, helping each other strap on armor, checking for rust spots. Sextus, your centurion, inspects your gear with a hawk's eye. But once, after a grueling patrol, he allowed extra posca, a rare kindness. Historical records, like those from Arrian's array against the Alans, praise the armored legion's discipline, but the human cost exhaustion, pain, infection is rarely told. The armor's toll is relentless. Your body, once untested, is leaner, hardened by necessity. You've seen men falter, their wounds festering from chafed skin, sent to the valetudinarium or discharged. The lorica's protection, vital against Parthian cavalry, comes at a price. Heatstroke in Syria's sun, stiffness in Britannia's cold. Yet, it's the armor's discipline that defines you. You polish it nightly, not just for Sextus, but for survival. Rust weakens plates, and a weak plate means death. Trajan's legions, armored and unyielding, conquered empires because men like you endured. The camp hums with Lifesmith's hammer. In the Fabrica sentries pace the ramparts. You think of home, a village where labor didn't mean carrying iron through deserts. The promise of retirement land after 25 years feels distant. Many die before then, worn down by armor and time. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' complaints, requests for new tunics, laments about worn gear. Yet, your armor, scarred but strong, is your pride, a badge of survival. As you stand guard, your gladius at your side, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The lorica segmentata, iconic in statues and ruins, symbolized an empire's might. But it was carried by men whose names history forgot, their endurance forging a world. Today, we marvel at Roman engineering, but rarely the soldiers who bore its weight. Ponder this. In our world of lightweight gear and comfort, could you carry such a burden daily? The legionary's ability to endure, to march under iron, speaks to a human capacity for resilience. What does it reveal about the sacrifices behind great achievements, and how do we honor those who bear the weight of progress? Story 7. Disease. In the ranks, plagues from crowded quarter CR, a legionary in Trajan's army, dear listener, stationed in a cramped fort along the Danube in 100 AD, the Roman Empire's legions are a marvel. Their conquests stretching from Britannia to Parthia, but beneath the glory lies a silent enemy, disease. In the close quarters of camp life, where 5,000 men share tents, latrines, and meager rations, illness spreads like wildfire. You're learning that the legionary's battle isn't just against foes, but against the unseen plagues that thrive in the filth and fatigue of military life. This is the grim reality of survival, where a cough or fever can be as deadly as a Dacian blade. Dawn breaks, and you rise from your straw mat in the leather tent you share with your contubernarium, an 8-man unit. The air is thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and nearby latrine pits. Your centurion, Marcus, orders a march, but you notice your tentmate, a Gaul named Flavius, coughing a dry, persistent hack that spread through the ranks. The camp, a temporary castra in Dacia's muddy plains, is a breeding ground for sickness. Historical records, like those from Tacitus, note that disease often killed more soldiers than battle, with legions losing thousands to fever and dysentery. Your day is filled with routine, digging ditches, hauling water, eating watery pools, porridge. But the camp's conditions make every task a risk. The latrines, dug at the camp's edge, overflow after rain, and flies swarm, carrying filth to your food. Water from the Danube, though boiled, tastes of mud, and posca, the vinegary drink, does little to mask it. The legion's hospital, the valetudinarium, is already crowded with men shivering from fever or clutching their stomachs. Vegetus's De Re Militari emphasizes hygiene latrines placed downwind, water purified, but in practice, exhaustion and haste undermine these rules. Flavius's cough worsens, his face pale as he struggles to lift his delabra. You've seen this before, a fever that starts small but spreads, felling entire cohorts. The legion's doctors, Medici, use herbs like willow bark or honey, but their tools are crude bronze scalpels, no anesthetics. You've heard of the Antonine Plague, decades later, which ravaged armies, but even now, smallpox and dysentery haunt the ranks. Trajan's Dacian campaigns, though victorious, saw men die in droves from illness, not swords. You try to stay clean, washing with a sponge when water's available, but baths are rare. Your tunic, soaked with sweat, breeds lice and scratching, opens sores that fester. The legion's strength, its dense, disciplined ranks, also makes it vulnerable. You share a tent, a mess, a life with men from across the empire, each carrying their own germs. As Flavius coughs again, you wonder, how do you protect yourself when disease lurks in every breath, and the legion's survival depends on staying strong? The sun climbs over the Dacian camp, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, feel the weight of disease creeping closer. It's 100 AD, and the fort's crowded quarters, thick with the reek of latrines and sweat, are a silent threat. Your tentmate Flavius's cough has deepened, a rattling sound that keeps you awake. The legion's might, its ability to conquer vast territories, rests on men like you, but illness born of filth, fatigue, and proximity can cripple an army faster than any enemy. You're learning to navigate this invisible battlefield, where survival demands vigilance and luck. Your day is grueling. You march, repair ramparts, and clean your lorica segmentata, all while watching Flavius weaken. The camp's sanitation, meant to curb disease, is faltering. Latrine pits, dug daily, are shallow in this rocky soil, and runoff seeps into the water supply. The empire's glorious conquests, its borders stretching thousands of miles, rests on men like you, armored and enduring. But as the sun climbs and your helmet traps the heat, a question burns. How do you carry this weight day after day, when every step feels like a battle against your own armor? The sun blazes overhead in the Syrian camp, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, feel the lorica segmentata's weight as a constant foe. It's 100 AD, and you're on patrol along the Euphrates, the desert air thick with dust that clings to your armor's iron plates. The lorica, your shield against Parthian arrows, is also your tormentor. It's 20 pounds of metal amplifying the heat and chafing your skin raw. This isn't the clash of battle or the rhythm of a march, it's the slow, grinding ordeal of wearing armor that never relents, a burden that tests your endurance as much as any enemy. Your centurion, Sextus, leads the patrol, his vine staff tapping out a pace. You carry your scutum shield, 15 pounds of layered wood, and a pilum javelin, adding to your load. The lorica's plates, fastened with leather straps, shift slightly as you move, pinching your sides. Zeno, your Thracian tentmate, taught you to pad your shoulders with wool scraps, but the relief is fleeting. The helmet's iron rim presses into your forehead, and sweat pools inside, stinging your eyes. Historical accounts, like those in Tacitus's histories, describe Roman soldiers as ironclad juggernauts, but they rarely mention the toll, blisters, heat exhaustion, and the constant need for maintenance. After hours on patrol, you return to camp, but the armor's demands don't end. Rust is the enemy. Here, Syria's humid nights corrode the iron plates. You spend evenings scrubbing your lorica with sand and olive oil, a task as vital as drilling. Neglect it, and Sextus will notice. A rusted lorica means a lashing or extra guard duty. The camp's fabrica, a workshop buzzing with smiths, repairs damaged plates, but you're responsible for daily care. Zeno jokes about polishing armor until it gleams like a senator's toga, but the work is tedious. Your hands stained with oil and grit. The physical toll mounts. Your back aches from the lorica's weight. Your knees strain under the load. You've seen men collapse on marches, their armor dragging them down. The Legion's medical tent, the valetudinarium, treats heatstroke and infections from chafed wounds. Yet, the lorica's protection is undeniable. Trajan's legions survived Dacian falxes because of it. You learn to endure, tightening straps to distribute weight, moving deliberately to save energy. Your contubernium shares tricks. Sleep with your helmet as a pillow to keep it safe, or use a cloth sling to ease the scutum's grip as you clean your armor by the campfire, the iron plates reflecting the flames. You feel the Legion's paradox. The armor makes you invincible, but binds you to suffering. Rome's empire, spanning 3 continents, was built by men who carried this weight daily. But as your shoulders throb and another patrol looms, a question lingers. How do you keep moving under this burden when the armor that saves you also threatens to break you? Night falls over the Syrian camp, dear listener, and you sit by the fire, your lorica segmentata finally off, its iron plates stacked beside you. It's 100 AD, and Trajan's legions push Rome's borders ever eastward. The armor, your shield in a hostile world, has left its mark. Your shoulders are bruised, your skin raw where straps dug in. The weight of the lorica helmet and scutum has become part of you, a second skin you've learned to bear through patrols and drills. But this burden and the resilience it demands shaped the men who built Rome's empire. What did it mean to live under this weight, and what does their endurance teach us? You've adapted to the armor's demands. Zeno, your Thracian tentmate, showed you 2 oil hinges daily, preventing squeaks that could betray a night march. You've learned to walk with a slight lean, easing the lorica's pressure on your spine. Your contubernium, the 8-man unit, shares the load, helping each other strap on armor, checking for rust spots. Sextus, your centurion, inspects your gear with a hawk's eye, but once, after a grueling patrol, he allowed extra posca, a rare kindness. Historical records, like those from Arrian's array against the Alans, praise the armored legion's discipline, but the human cost exhaustion, pain, infection is rarely told. The armor's toll is relentless. Your body, once untested, is leaner, hardened by necessity. You've seen men falter, their wounds festering from chafed skin, sent to the valetudinarium or discharged. The The lorica's protection, vital against Parthian cavalry, comes at a price. Heatstroke in Syria's sun, stiffness in Britannia's cold. Yet, it's the armor's discipline that defines you. You polish it nightly, not just for sextus, but for survival. Rust weakens plates, and a weak plate means death. Trajans, legions, armored and unyielding, conquered empires because men like you endured. The camp hums with Lifesmith's hammer in the fabrica. Sentries pace the ramparts. You think of home, a village where labor didn't mean carrying iron through deserts. The promise of retirement land after 25 years feels distant. Many die before then, worn down by armor and time. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' complaints, requests for new tunics, laments about worn gear. Yet, your armor, scarred but strong, is your pride, a badge of survival. As you stand guard, your gladius at your side, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The lorica segmentata, iconic in statues and ruins, symbolized an empire's might. But it was carried by men whose names history forgot, their endurance forging a world. Today, we marvel at Roman engineering, but rarely the soldiers who bore its weight. Ponder this. In our world of lightweight gear and comfort, could you carry such a burden daily? The legionary's ability to endure, to march under iron, speaks to a human capacity for resilience. What does it reveal about the sacrifices behind great achievements, and how do we honor those who bear the weight of progress? Story 7. Disease. In the ranks, plagues from crowded quarter. A legionary in Trajan's army, dear listener, stationed in a cramped fort along the Danube in 100 AD, the Roman Empire's legions are a marvel. Their conquests stretching from Britannia to Parthia, but beneath the glory lies a silent enemy, disease. In the close quarters of camp life, where 5,000 men share tents, latrines, and meager rations, illness spreads like wildfire. You're learning that the legionary's battle isn't just against foes, but against the unseen plagues that thrive in the filth and fatigue of military life. This is the grim reality of survival, where a cough or fever can be as deadly as a Dacian blade. Dawn breaks, and you rise from your straw mat in the leather tent you share with your contubernarium, an 8-man unit. The air is thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and nearby latrine pits. Your centurion, Marcus, orders a march, but you notice your tentmate, a Gaul named Flavius, coughing a dry, persistent hack that spread through the ranks. The camp, a temporary castra in Dacia's muddy plains, is a breeding ground for sickness. Historical records, like those from Tacitus, note that disease often killed more soldiers than battle, with legions losing thousands to fever and dysentery. Your day is filled with routine, digging ditches, hauling water, eating watery pools, porridge. But the camp's conditions make every task a risk. The latrines, dug at the camp's edge, overflow after rain, and flies swarm, carrying filth to your food. Water from the Danube, though boiled, tastes of mud, and posca, the vinegary drink, does little to mask it. The legion's hospital, the valetudinarium, is already crowded with men shivering from fever or clutching their stomachs. Vegetus's De Re Militari emphasizes hygiene latrines placed downwind, water purified, but in practice, exhaustion and haste undermine these rules. Flavius's cough worsens, his face pale as he struggles to lift his delabra. You've seen this before. a fever that starts small but spreads, felling entire cohorts. The legions, doctors, Medici, use herbs like willow bark or honey, but their tools are crude bronze scalpels, no anesthetics. You've heard of the Antonine Plague, decades later, which ravaged armies, but even now, smallpox and dysentery haunt the ranks. Trajan's Dacian campaigns, though victorious, saw men die in droves from illness, not swords. You try to stay clean, washing with a sponge when water's available, but baths are rare. Your tunic, soaked with sweat, breeds lice and scratching, opens sores that fester. The legion's strength, its dense, disciplined ranks, also makes it vulnerable. You share a tent, a mess, a life with men from across the empire, each carrying their own germs. As Flavius coughs again, you wonder, how do you protect yourself when disease lurks in every breath, and the legion's survival depends on staying strong? The sun climbs over the Dacian camp, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, feel the weight of disease creeping closer. It's 100 AD, and the fort's crowded quarters, thick with the reek of latrines and sweat, are a silent threat. Your tentmate Flavius's cough has deepened, a rattling sound that keeps you awake. The legion's might, its ability to conquer vast territories, rests on men like you, but illness born of filth, fatigue, and proximity can cripple an army faster than any enemy. You're learning to navigate this invisible battlefield, where survival demands vigilance and luck. Your day is grueling. You march, repair ramparts, and clean your lorica segmentata, all while watching Flavius weaken. The camp's sanitation, meant to curb disease, is faltering. Latrine pits, dug daily, are shallow in this rocky soil, and runoff seeps into the water supply. Desertion crosses your mind, but the penalty, death by futurium, looms. The legion's strength lies in its permanence, its ability to hold places like Britannia against all odds. Yet, as you lie on your bunk, the barracks' stone walls closing in, you feel the weight of years without connection as you prepare for night watch. The fort, silent but for the wind. A question haunts you. How do you keep faith in a life where duty binds you to a distant frontier, and the hope of seeing home feels ever more elusive? Night falls over the Britannia fort, dear listener, and you stand on the ramparts, your gladius at your side, the cold biting through your cloak. It's 100 AD, and Trajan's legions guard the empire's edges. But you're fighting a quieter battle, the isolation of frontier life. Years have passed since you left your village, and the faces of family blur in your memory. The fort, with its endless duties and cramped barracks, is your world now, shared with men like Lucius, whose own longing mirrors yours. This is the legionary's hidden, sacrifice-enduring years of separation to hold Rome's frontiers. What did it mean to live this way, and what does it teach us about endurance? You've adapted to the frontier's rhythm. Lucius teaches you to carve wood, to pass the long nights, and you trade stories of home, his Pannonian hills, your Gallic fields. The contubernim, your 8-man unit, becomes a surrogate family, sharing Pascha and laughter to stave off loneliness. Gaius, the centurion, enforces discipline, but shares tales of his own youth in Italia, a rare glimpse of softness. Historical records, like those from Tacitus, describe frontier forts as linchpins of empire, holding back barbarian tides. But they rarely mention the men who lived there, their letters home lost to time. The isolation takes a toll. You've seen soldiers grow silent, their spirits worn by years without news. Some turn to wine, others to dice, risking Gaius's wrath. The promise of retirement land or coin after 25 years keeps you going, but many die before then, felled by raids or disease. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' lives, pleas for letters, dreams of reunion. You, too, cling to hope, scratching messages on wax, though few replies come. The fort's routines, guard duty, wall repairs, anchor you, but they can't replace home, yet the frontier forges resilience. You've learned to find comfort in small acts, a shared joke, a warm fire, a Briton's traded blanket. The Legion's strength, its ability to hold distant lands, rested on men who endured this solitude. Trajan's empire, spanning 3 continents, was built by those who stood watch in places like this, their names forgotten but their forts enduring. You're part of that legacy, a sentinel in the fog, guarding Rome's dream. As you scan the dark hills, you reflect on Rome's legacy. These frontier forts, now ruins like Hadrian's Wall, symbolize an empire's reach. But they were manned by men who sacrificed years, even lifetimes, to isolation. Their endurance, their ability to find meaning in duty, built a world. Ponder. This, in our connected age, could you endure such separation? The legionaries' resilience, their ability to find meaning in duty, speaks to a human capacity to persevere. What does it teach us about the sacrifices behind great endeavors, and how do we honor those who bear them in silence? Story 9. Marching under load, the endless road to warrior, a legionary in Trajan's army. Dear listener, trudging through the rugged hills of Dacia, in 100 AD, the Roman Empire's legions are a machine of conquest, their victories etched across continents. But for you, glory is overshadowed by the grueling reality of the march. Laden with over 60 pounds of armor weapons, and a furca pole carrying your Kitu face, endless roads that test your body and spirit. The march is the Legion's lifeline, moving thousands to battle, but it's a crucible of endurance, where every step is a struggle against weight and fatigue. The Buccina's call wakes you before dawn, the camp already stirring. You hoist your furca, a wooden pole slung across your shoulder, bearing a sarcina pack, cooking pots, a cloak, 3 days' rations of bucellum, and entrenching tools. Your lorica segmentata armor, 20 pounds of iron plates, clanks with each step, and your scutum shield, strapped to your back, adds 15 more. A gladius sword and pilum javelin hang from your belt, while hobnailed caligae boots grind into the rocky path. Vegetis's de re military notes that legionaries marched 24 Roman miles daily, carrying loads that broke lesser men. Your centurion, Titus, drives the pace, his vine staff snapping at stragglers. The column 5,000 men, auxiliaries, and mules stretches a mile, dust choking the air. You're part of a contubernium, an 8-man unit, and your tentmate, an Egyptian named Amon, mutters about the heat. His accent thick, but his stride steady. Historical accounts, like those in Caesar's Gallic Wars, praise the legion's mobility, moving armies across provinces to crush foes. But for you, it's a grind. Blisters form, your shoulders burn, and the furca's weight digs into your flesh. The Dacian terrain is unforgiving: steep slopes, muddy streams, and forests hiding hostile tribes. You march in formation, ready to form a testudo if ambushed. The legion's strength, its ability to reach battlefields from Britannia to Parthia, depends on this relentless movement. Trajan's Dacian campaigns, carving an empire, relied on men like you, marching under crushing loads. Ammon shares a trick. Shift the furca to your other shoulder hourly to spread the pain. But relief is fleeting. A brief rest brings Pascha and hard bucellum, barely enough to fuel the next leg. As the column snakes through a valley, Titus shouts to tighten ranks. The march will continue till dusk. Another camp to build, another road tomorrow. The empire's roads, its victories, were paved by such toil. But as your knees buckle and sweat blinds you, a question gnaws. How do you keep marching when the load feels unbearable and the road to war stretches without end? The sun beats down on the Dacian hills, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, press on with the march. Your furcas wait, a relentless foe. It's 100 AD, and the column of 5,000 men snakes through rocky terrain, bound for a battlefield yet unseen. Your sarcina, packpots, rations, tool sways on your shoulder, its straps cutting into your skin. The lorica segmentata armor, scutum shield, and weapons push your load past 60 pounds, turning each step into a test of will. This is the legionary's life, marching under load, where endurance is as vital as any sword. Titus, your centurion, keeps the pace brutal, his vine staff a constant threat. You march 20 Roman miles today, a standard day's trek as Polybius's. Histories describe, covering ground that made Rome's legions unstoppable. Your Caligay boots, studded with iron nails, grip the uneven path but blister your feet. Ammon, your Egyptian tentmate, hums a Nile chant to keep rhythm, teaching you to breathe deeply, to ease the strain. When a weaker man falters, and you sling his pilum to your load, the march is more than physical. You scan the hills for Dacian raiders, your hand near your gladius. The column's discipline, its ability to shift from march to battle formation, awed enemies, as Arrian's accounts note. But the cost is clear. Sweat soaks your tunic, your back aches, and dehydration looms. Breaks are shorter. Gulp of Pascha, a bite of bucellum, the hard biscuit crumbling in your mouth. You've heard tales of marches in Trajan's Parthian campaigns, where men dropped from exhaustion, left behind, or sent to the valetudinarium. The legion's logistics are a marvel. Mules carry grain and siege gear, but you carry your survival rations, a cloak, a delabra for camp building. Ammon shows you to wrap cloth around the furcus pole to cushion it, but your shoulders still bruise. The road, churned to mud by thousands of boots, slows the pace, and Titus's shouts grow harsher. You dream of Homa village with soft beds, but desertion means death by festuarium. The legion's strength, its ability to conquer Dacia, rests on this grueling march. As evening nears, the column halts to build a camp. You'll dig ditches and raise tents, the furca's load swapped for a delabra's labor. The empire's reach its roads, its victories, was built by men who marched under such burdens. But as your legs tremble and the road stretches on, a question burns. How do you keep moving when every step is pain and the weight of war never lifts? Night falls over the Dacian camp, dear listener, and you slump beside a fire. Your furca finally unshouldered, its weight still echoing in your aching body. It's 100 AD, and Trajan's legions march on, their conquests forging an empire. The day's march 20 Roman miles under a 60-pound load has left you battered. Your lorica segmentata chafing, your caligae boots bloodied with blisters. Yet you've survived, part of a machine that moves Rome's might across continents. This is the Legionary's legacy, enduring the endless road to war. What did it mean to march like this? And what does it teach us about resilience? You've adapted to the march's demands. Ammon, your Egyptian tentmate, taught you to tie your sarcina tighter, balancing the load to spare your back. Your contubernium shares tricks, chew bucellum slowly to stretch rations, or sing to keep pace. Titus, the centurion, drives you hard, but once shared extra posca after a brutal trek, a rare nod to your effort. Historical records, like those in Tacitus's annals, praise the legions' mobility marching thousands of miles to subdue foes, but they rarely mention the toll. Men lost to exhaustion, feet worn to bone, spirits frayed by endless roads. The march's hardship forges bonds. Your contubernium, 8 men from across the empire, carries each other's burdens, literally. The legion's strength, its ability to reach Dacia or Battania, rested on this unity, but the cost is steep. You've seen men collapse, sent to the valetudinarium, or left behind, their fate uncertain. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' laments, pleas for new boots, dreams of rest. You, too, dream of home. But the road and the furca are your reality. The empire's triumph sits vast roads. Its far-flung forts were built by men who marched under crushing loads. You've learned to endure, pacing breaths, mending blisters, with cloth ignoring the pain in your knees. Trajan's Dacian victories, carved in his column, show disciplined ranks, but not the men who fell from fatigue. Your march, one of countless, made those victories possible. As you rub your shoulders, the fire's warmth, a fleeting comfort. You feel a flicker of pride. You're part of Rome's relentless machine, standing guard under the stars. Your gladius heavy, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The roads you march, now ruins, carried legions to glory. But they were trod by men like you, whose endurance history forgot. Their resilience, carrying war's weight across empires, built a world. Ponder this, in our age of ease, could you bear such a load? The legionary's ability to march, to endure, speaks to a human capacity for perseverance. What does it teach us about the unseen struggles behind great achievements? And how do we honor those who carried the weight of history? Story 10. The fear of battle. Facing death in the lineaire, a legionary in Trajan's army, dear listener. Standing in formation on a Dacian plain in 100 AD, the Roman Empire's legions are a juggernaut, their conquests reshaping the world. But now you face the stark reality of battle. Tomorrow, you'll march against a Dacian warband, their phalanxes gleaming under the dawn. Your lorica segmentata armor feels heavier, your gladius a cold weight at your side. The fear of death sharp, visceral, and unspoken grips you, a shadow that haunts every soldier. This is the legionary's crucible, not just fighting, but facing the terror of mortality on the line. The camp buzzes with preparation. You sharpen your gladius, its edge honed for thrusting, and check your scutum shield's grip. Your centurion, Lucius, drills the centuriati men, including your contubernium in the testudo formation. shields locked to deflect arrows. His vine staff snaps as he barks orders. Hold the line, no gaps. Historical records, like Cassius Dio's accounts of Trajan's Dacian wars, describe Roman discipline as unbreakable, but they rarely mention the dread that churns your gut. You've heard tales of battles where thousands fell, their bodies left to crows. Your tentmate, a Numidian named Hanno, polishes his pilum, his dark eyes distant. He speaks little, but last night he admitted his fear, a rare confession among men trained to hide it. The legion's strength lies in unity, in formations like the testudo or cuneus, but fear is personal. You've trained for months, drills, javelin throws, marches under 60-pound loads, but nothing prepares you for the thought of a falx cleaving your armor. Vegetace's military notes that courage comes from preparation, yet your heart races as you imagine the enemy's war cries. The camp's routine offers no escape. You eat bucellum, the hard biscuit sticking in your throat, and sip posca, its sourness matching your mood. Hanno teaches you to tie a cloth band around your brow to keep sweat from your eyes in battle, a small act of camaraderie. The legion's diversity goals, Syrians, Numidians, binds you, but fear unites you more. Trajan's campaigns, pushing Rome's borders, depend on men like you facing death without breaking. As night falls, you stand guard, the camp's fires flickering. The Dacian hills loom, hiding tomorrow's fate. The empire's glorious arches, its victories rests on soldiers who conquer fear. But as you grip your gladius, Hanno's silence beside you, a question burns. How do you face battle's terror when death waits on the line and courage feels like a fleeting hope? Dawn breaks over the Dacian plain. Dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, stand in formation, the weight of fear heavier than your lorica. It's 100 AD, and the battle against the Dacians looms, their war cries echoing across the valley. Your scutum shield feels like a lifeline, your gladius a fragile defense against the falxes you've seen cleave men in two. The legion's discipline, forged through drills and marches, holds you upright. But the fear of death raw and unshakable threatens to unravel you. This is the soldier's truth. Facing battle means facing mortality itself. Lucius, your centurion, strides before the century, his voice steady, eyes forward, shields up. You form the testudo, 80 men moving as one, shields locked against the expected hail of arrows. Your contubernium, including Hanno, your Numidian tentmate, stands shoulder to shoulder, his breathing ragged but controlled. Historical accounts, like those in Arrian's array against the Alans, praise Roman formations for their precision. But they don't capture the pounding in your chest, the dread of a falx finding a gap. You've trained for this payless drills, mock battles, but the reality of blood and chaos looms dot. The march to the battlefield is short, but agonizing. Your 60-pound load armor shield, pilum feels crushing under the weight of fear. Hanno mutters a prayer to his gods, teaching you to clench your jaw, to steady shaking hands. The legion's strength, its ability to crush Dacian armies, rests on discipline overcoming terror. Trajan's victories, carved on his column, show orderly ranks, but not the men who vomited before battle or whispered of home. You think of your village, a distant memory of safety, and wonder if you'll see it again. The enemy appears Dacians in furs, their falxes glinting. Lucius orders Pila thrown. You hurl yours, its shaft bending to ruin enemy shields. The clash nears, and fear. Spike stories of slaughtered legions haunt you. Yet, the contubernum's bond holds. Hanno grips your arm, a silent vow to fight together. Breaks are impossible. You sip Posca from a flask, its sourness grounding you. The legion's diversity, men from every corner of the empire, unites in this moment, facing death as one dot. As the Dacians charge, their screams piercing the air, you lock shields, Lucius shouting to hold. The empire's might, its conquests across 3 continents, depends on you standing firm. But as the enemy closes, a falx raised high, a question grips you. How do you fight when fear screams louder than any war cry, and death feels certain? The battle's aftermath blankets the Dacian plain, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, stand among the living, your gladius bloodied, your body trembling. It's 100 AD, and the Dacians are routed, their falxes scattered across the field. Your lorica segmentata is dented, your scutum scarred, but you've survived in like many. The fear of death, that gnawing terror, lingers in your chest, but you faced it, held the line, and lived. This is the legionary's triumph, not just victory, but conquering fear itself. What did it mean to endure such dread, and what does it teach us about courage? The battle was chaos. The testudo held against arrows, your pilum struck true, and Hanno, your Numidian tentmate, fought beside you, his gladius flashing. Lucius's commands kept you anchored, the century moving as one. Historical records, like Dio's accounts, describe Trajan's legions crushing Dacia through discipline, but they omit the cost. Comrades fallen, their blood soaking the earth, your own hands shaking as you struck. You've adapted Hanno's trick of tying a cloth to steady your grip, saved you in the melee. The contubernium, your 8-man unit, is your strength, binding you through shared terror. Fear's toll is heavy. You've seen men freeze, their shields dropping, cut down in moments. Others, wounded, crawl to the valetudinarium, where Medici stitch gashes with crude needles. The promise of retirement land, after 25 years, feels hollow when survival is uncertain. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' fears, letters begging for luck, prayers for safety. You, too, prayed, clutching a charm from home as the Dacians charged. Trajan's empire, built on such battles, demanded men who faced death daily, their courage forged in fire, yet survival brings clarity. You've learned to breathe through fear, to trust the man beside you, to move when instinct screams to flee. Lucius, stern but proud, shares extra bucellum tonight, a nod to your century's valor. The legion's discipline, its ability to turn fear into action, made Rome unstoppable. You're part of that legacy, scarred but standing, a testament to resilience. The battlefield, littered with broken pila and fallen foes, is a grim monument to your endurance. As you stand guard under the stars, the camp quiet but for the wounded's groans, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The empire's triumphs sit columns. Its conquests were built by men who faced death and fought on today. We marvel at Roman victories, but rarely the fear they overcame. Their courage, born in the face of mortality, shaped history. Ponder this. In our safer world, could you face such terror? The legionary's ability to stand firm, to conquer fear, speaks to a human capacity for bravery. What does it teach us? About the strength required to face our own battles. And how do we honor those who fought against the shadow of death? Story 11. The burden of loyalty. Oaths that bind for life. You're a legionary in Trajan's army, dear listener, stationed in a bustling camp in Mesopotamia. 100 AD, the Roman Empire's legions are its backbone, their conquests expanding Rome's reach. But your life is bound by a deeper force, the sacramentum, the sacred oath of loyalty, sworn upon enlistment. It ties you to the emperor, the legion, and a life of service, often until death. In this sun-scorched land, far from home, you're learning that loyalty is both a shield and a chain, a burden that shapes every choice. This is the legionary's unspoken struggle, living by an oath that demands everything. The day begins with the buccina's call, rousing you from your tent. You, Dan, your lorica segmentata, its iron plates, a familiar weight, and join your contubernium, an 8-man unit, for roll call. Your centurion, Decimus, inspects the ranks. His vine staff, ready to punish disloyalty. Desertion means death by fustuarium. The sacramentum, as described in Polybius's histories, binds you to obey orders, fight for Rome, and never abandon your post. You swore it before a shrine, your hand raised, pledging to Trajan and the eagle standard, the legions. Soul. Your tentmate, a Spaniard named Gaius, whispers of home, a vineyard he'll never see unless he survives 25 years. The oath forbids leaving, even in peace, your Rome's body and soul. Today, you're tasked with guarding a supply caravan, a vital lifeline for Trajan's Parthian campaigns. The legion's strength, its ability to hold distant provinces, rests on men like you, bound by loyalty. Historical records, like Tacitus's Annals, note that oaths kept legions cohesive, but they don't capture the weight of a promise that severs you from freedom. The Mesopotamian heat is relentless, dust coating your armor as you march. Gaius teaches you to hum a tune to stay alert, a small defiance within the oath's bounds. The legions, diversities, Paniards, Egyptians, Thracians, Strice, unities, under this shared vow, but it's a heavy bond. You've seen men flogged for questioning orders, their loyalty tested by pain. The eagle standard, carried by the Aquilifer, is your rallying point, a symbol you'd die to protect. Yet, as you guard the caravan, the oath feels like a yoke, tying you to a life of endless duty. As evening nears, the caravan secure, you stand watch, the camp's fires glowing, the empire's glorious temples, its triumphs rests on your oath, on men who serve without question. But as Gaius's silence echoes your own doubts, a question lingers. How do you bear the burden of loyalty when the oath that defines you also chains you to a life you didn't fully choose? The Mesopotamian sun climbs higher, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, march under the weight of your sacramentum, the oath binding you to Rome. It's 100 AD, and you're guarding a supply caravan through dusty plains. Your lorica segmentata, chafing your gladius at the ready. The oath sworn to Trajan and the eagle standard demands unwavering loyalty. Obey orders, defend the empire, never flee. It's the legion's heartbeat, but also a chain tying you to a life of service far from home. This is the soldier's hidden burden, a vow that both empowers and imprisons your centurion. Decimus leads the caravan guard, his voice sharp as he orders tighter ranks. The legion's discipline, forged by the sacramentum, makes it unstoppable. As Cassius Dio's histories note in Trajan's Parthian campaigns, your contubernium, including Gaius, your Spaniard tentmate, moves as one, scanning for Parthian raiders. Gaius shares a trick. Rub olive oil on your wrists to ease the armor's straps, a small comfort within the oath's rigid bounds. But the oath's weight is heavier than iron. It forbids desertion, questions, or personal dreams. The caravan, laden with grain and oil, is vital to the campaign. You march 20 Roman miles, your 60-pound load armor shield, sarcina, pack testing your strength. The oath keeps you moving, even as your legs ache and thoughts of home, a village, a family surface. Historical accounts, like those in praise the legion's loyalty, but they omit the cost. Men who broke under the oath's pressure, flogged or executed. You've seen a deserter stoned, his betrayal a warning. The eagle standard, glinting ahead, is your sacred charge. Losing it would shame the legion. Gaius speaks of his vineyard, a dream deferred by 20 more years of service. The sacramentum allows no escape. Retirement is a distant hope, and many die before it. You share Pascha and Bucellum during a brief halt, the sour drink and hard biscuit grounding you. The legion's diversity binds human from every province, united by the same vow, but loyalty isolates too. You've stopped writing home. Letters rarely return. Trajan's empire, spanning continents, rests on your obedience. But it feels like a life sentence. As the caravan nears camp, Decimus praises your vigilance. A rare nod, the oath's power, its ability to hold thousands in lockstep, built Rome's might. But as you trudge on, Gaius's quiet humming beside you, a question gnaws. How do you stay loyal when the oath demands your life, and the freedom you swore to defend feels like a memory? Night settles over the Mesopotamian camp, dear listener, and you sit by the fire, your lorica segmentata off, but the sacramentum's weight ever present. It's 100 AD, and the caravan you guarded is safe. But your oath to emperor, legion, and eagle standard binds you tighter than any chain. The day's march, the endless duties, are done. Yet loyalty's burden lingers, shaping your life in this distant land. This is the legionary's silent sacrifice, a vow that holds Rome together but costs you everything. What did it mean to live this way, and what does it teach us about duty? You've adapted to the oath's demands. Gaius, your Spaniard tentmate, taught you to carve a mark on your scutum. For each march survived, a quiet rebellion within loyalty's bounds. Your contubernium, 8 men bound by the sacramentum, shares stories of home, forging a family from shared duty. Decimus, the centurion, enforces the oath with his vine staff, but once shared wine after a hard day, a nod to your endurance. Historical records, like Tacitus's histories, praise the legion's unwavering loyalty. But they rarely mention the men who served decades, their dreams deferred. The oath's toll is heavy. You've seen soldiers break some, defy orders, earning lashings. Others desert, facing death. The eagle standard, carried by the aquilofer, is your sacred charge. Its loss, as in Varus's defeat, meant disgrace. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' struggles, pleas for leave, laments for lost years. You, too, feel the Acura village, your family, fading with each year. The sacramentum promises retirement land or coin, but many fall to battle or disease before 25 years. Trajan's empire, built on such loyalty, conquered Parthia, yet you wonder what you've gained. Loyalty forges resilience. You've learned to obey without question, to march through pain, to guard the eagle with your life. The contuberniums, Bongaius's jests, shared post-Giza's, the burden, the legion's strength. Its ability to hold provinces rested on men who upheld their oaths despite isolation. You're part of that legacy, a soldier whose vow upholds an empire's dream, even as it steals your own. As you stand guard, the camp quiet, but for the fire's crackle, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The empire's triumph sits arches. Its frontiers were built by men bound by the sacramentum, their loyalty unshakable. Today, we admire Rome's grandeur, but rarely the soldiers who gave their lives to it. Their duty, their sacrifice, shaped history. Ponder this. In our world of choice, could you live by such an oath? The legionaries' loyalty, their ability to endure for Rome, speaks to a human capacity for devotion. What does it teach us about the cost of duty, and how do we honor those who bore it for a greater cause? Story 12, The Price of Victory. Aftermath of Slot Terrier, a legionary in Trajan's army. Dear listener, standing on a blood-soaked Dacian battlefield in 100 AD, the Roman Empire's legions have just crushed a Dacian warband. Their falxes broken, their bodies strewn across the plain. Your lorica segmentata is splattered with mud, and worse, your gladius, heavy with use. Victory is yours, but it comes at a cost. The aftermath of slaughter surrounds you, comrades fallen, enemies slain, and the grim task of cleaning up. This is the legionary's hidden burden, not just fighting, but bearing the weight of victory's brutal price. The battle's din has faded, replaced by groans of the wounded and the caw of crows. Your centurion Vetus orders your century 80 men, including your contubernium, to secure the field. You step over corpses, Dacian and Roman alike, to gather weapons and strip enemy armor, as Cassius Dio's histories describe in Trajan's campaigns. Your tentmate, a Cappadocian named Tyro, points out a fallen legionary, his face familiar from last night's dice game. The legion's triumph, its expansion into Dacia, rests on such victories, but the sight of bloodied friends chills you. Your task is grim. Pile enemy dead for burning, tend to wounded comrades, and salvage gear. The scutum shield you carry is cracked, your pilum spent, but you work on, driven by Vetus's vine staff. Historical records, like those in Tacitus's annals, note that Romans cleared battlefields methodically, ensuring no loot-aided foes. The valetudinarium, the camp hospital, overflows with men screaming as Medici sew wounds with bronze needles. You've seen battles before, but the aftermath, it smells, its sights never grows easier. Tyro teaches you to wrap a cloth over your nose to dull the stench of blood and decay. Your contubernium, 8 men bound by shared hardship, works in silence, their faces pale. The legion's diversity goals, Syrians, Cappadocians unites in this grim duty, but victory feels hollow. You sip Posca and chew Bucellum during a brief pause, the sour drink and hard biscuit grounding you. Trajan's empire, its arches and columns celebrating conquest, doesn't show this. the cost of victory paid in lives and labor. As you stack Dacian weapons, the sun sinking, you feel the weight of survival. The Empire's glory, its vast territories, was built on fields like this, cleared by men like you. But as Tyro mutters a prayer for the fallen, a question haunts you. How do you carry the price of victory when the slaughter you wrought and survived leaves scars deeper than any blade? The Dacian battlefield is cloaked in twilight, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, labor under the shadow of victory. It's 100 AD, and the Dacian warband lies defeated, their bodies littering the plain. Your lorica segmentata is caked with blood, your scutum shield battered. The triumph is Rome's, but the aftermath piling corpses, tending wounded, salvaging gears, yours to bear. The price of victory is not just the lives lost, but the toll it takes on those who survive. A burden you carry with every step. Vetus, your centurion, drives the century to clear the field, his vine staff a constant threat. You drag Dacian bodies to a pyre, their phalanxes collected to prevent rebellion, as Arrian's accounts of Roman tactics describe. Your contubernium, including Tyro, your Cappadocian tentmate, works grimly, hauling fallen legionarium. Tyro shares a trick. Focus on one task, stacking shields, tying knots to block out the sight of mangled comrades. Historical records, like those in Suetonius, praise Roman efficiency, but they omit the horror, the stench of death, the screams from the hospital tent. The wounded are many. You help carry a legionary, his leg gashed by a falx, to the Medici, who work by lamplight with crude tools. Some survive, others won't, their fevered moans haunting you. The legion's strength, its ability to crush Dacia, rests on victories like this, but the aftermath tests your resolve. You've seen men break, refusing to touch the dead, earning Vetus's lash. Trajan's campaigns, etched on his column, show disciplined ranks, not the blood-soaked labor that follows. Your contubernium bonds over shared duty. Tyro offers a sip of his posca, its sourness, a brief distraction. The legion's diversity, men from every province, unites in this grim task, but the weight of slaughter lingers. You pause to eat bucellum, its hardness a reminder of hunger, and wrap a cloth tighter around your nose. The Empire's expansion, its roads and forts, was built on fields cleared by men like you, yet the glory feels distant. The pyre's flames rise, consuming the enemy, but not the memories. As night deepens, Vitus orders a final sweep for weapons. The battlefield, littered with broken pila and shattered shields, is a testament to Rome's might. But as you work, Tyro's quiet prayer beside you, a question gnaws. How do you endure the aftermath, when victory's price is measured in blood and the faces of the fallen haunt your dreams? Dawn breaks over the Dacian battlefield, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, stand among the ashes of victory. It's 100 AD, and the Dacian warband is gone, their pyre smoldering, your lorica segmentata scarred from battle. The field is cleared, the wounded tended, but the price of victory, comrades lost, enemies slain, and memories lingers in your bones. You've survived, but the aftermath of slaughter has reshaped you. This is the legionary's silent burden, carrying the cost of triumph. What did it mean to endure this, and what does it teach us about sacrifice? You've adapted to the grim work, Tyro, your Cappadocian tentmate, taught you to hum a tune to dull the horror of handling corpses. A trick that steadies your hands. Your contubernum, 8 men bound by battle, shares the load, carrying the wounded, stacking gear, burning the dead. Vetus, the centurion, praises your century's efficiency, offering extra pasca, a rare gesture. Historical records, like Dacia accounts, celebrate Trajan's conquests, but they skip the aftermath, the blood-soaked earth, the valetudinarium's cries, the weight on survivors' souls. The toll is heavy. You've seen men falter, their eyes hollow, unable to face another body. Some turn to wine, risking Vetus's wrath. Others pray, clutching charms. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' grief. Letters, mourning friends, pleas for strength. You, too, carry scars, memories of a fallen legionary, his laugh silenced. Trajan's empire, its columns and triumphs, was built on victories like this, but the cost is personal. The legion's discipline, its ability to clear fields and march on, made Rome eternal, yet you feel mortal. Resilience grows from necessity. You've learned to focus on tasks, polishing your gladius, mending your scutum to anchor yourself. The contubernum's bond tiro's quiet support, shared rations, holds you together. The empire's glory, its vast provinces, rested on men who bore this aftermath, their labor unseen. You're part of that legacy, a survivor of slaughter, carrying Rome's dream through blood and Ashdod as you stand guard. The camp quiet, but for the pyre's embers, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The empire's victories, carved in stone, were won by men who faced death and its aftermath. Today, we marvel at Roman triumphs, but rarely the soldiers who paid the price. Their endurance, their strength, in the face of slaughter, shaped history. Ponder this in our world of distant wars. Could you bear such a burden? The legionaries' sacrifice, their strength in the face of slaughter, speaks to a human capacity for resilience. What does it teach us about the true cost of victory? And how do we honor those who paid it in silence? Story 13. The Endless Watch. Guarding the empire's edge, you were a legionary in Trajan's army. Dear listener, posted to a lonely watchtower on the Parthian frontier in 100 AD, the Roman Empire's borders stretch across continents. But here, in this stone perch overlooking a dusty plain, you stand sentinel, guarding against unseen threats. The endless watch hours of vigilance, day or night, in searing heat or biting cold, is your duty. With your lorica segmentata and gladius, you're a lone link in Rome's vast chain. But the solitude and strain test your resolve. This is the legionary's quiet trial, standing watch, where boredom and danger blur into one. The buccina signals your shift at dusk, rousing you from a straw mat in the tower's cramped base. You climb to the platform, your scutum shield slung over your back, your eyes scanning the horizon for Parthian raiders. Your centurion, Sextus, stationed you here, with your contubernum, an 8-man unit. But tonight, it's just you and a Thracian named Drusus. Historical records, like those in Tacitus's annals, describe frontier watchtowers as Rome's eyes, vital for signaling threats. But they don't mention the monotony, hours staring into emptiness, your mind wandering to a village far away. The tower, a squat stone structure, is one of many along Trajan's frontier, linked by signal fires to forts miles away. You carry a horn to sound alarms, a tinderbox for signals, and a wax tablet to log observations. Drusus teaches you to mark the tablet with a stylus to stay alert, scratching lines for each hour. The legion's strength, its ability to hold provinces like Mesopotamia, depends on such vigilance. But the wind howls, dust stings your eyes, and the weight of your armor, 20 pounds of iron, presses harder as the night drags on. You sip Posca from a flask, its sourness a faint comfort, and chew bucellum, the hard biscuit crumbling in your mouth. The legion's diversity, Thracians, Gauls, Syrians means shared tricks, but also shared isolation. You've heard of ambushes on watchtowers, like those in Germania, where sentries vanished. The eagle standard, safe in the fort, is your legion's soul, and your watch protects it. Yet the silence is deafening, broken only by Drusus's cough or a distant jackal's cry. As midnight nears, the stars bright above the Parthian wastes, you grip your gladius, the tower's walls your only shield. The empire's security, its vast dominion, rests on men like you watching through the night. But as Drusus paces below, a question gnaws. How do you endure the endless watch, when every shadow could be death, and the solitude feels as heavy as your armor? The Parthian frontier is shrouded in darkness, dear listener, and you, a legionary, in Trajan's army, stand atop a watchtower, your eyes straining against the night. It's 100 AD, and your endless watchguards roam's edge, a solitary vigil against Parthian raiders. Your lorica segmentata chafes, your scutum leans against the tower's edge, and the cold seeps through your cloak. The hours stretch, blending boredom with the ever-present threat of attack. This is the legionary's unseen burden, standing sentinel, where the empire's safety hinges on your unwavering gaze. Sextus, your centurion, checks the tower sporadically, his torch a brief flicker in the night. You're paired with Drusus, your Thracian tentmate, who paces below his spear. Ready. The tower's role, as Arrian's accounts note, is to signal threats fires for danger, horns for attack, but the silence is oppressive. You scratch marks on your wax tablet, a trick Drusus shared to fight drowsiness, each line a victory over fatigue. Historical records, like those in Cassius Dio, praise Rome's frontier defenses, but they skip the toll, aching legs, racing thoughts, and the fear of missing a shadow that could be a foe. The frontier is treacherous. Parthian horsagers, swift and silent, could strike without warning. You've heard tales of towers overrun, sentries found with slit throats. Your horn, tied to your belt, is your lifeline to the fort, but it's miles away. The legion's discipline, its ability to hold Mesopotamia, rests on watchmen like you. Yet the isolation gnaws. Drusus hums a Thracian tune, teaching you to tap your foot to stay alert. A small defiance against the night's weight you share. A sip of Posca, its sour bite sharpening your senses. The legion's diversity binds you men from distant provinces, united by duty, but the watch isolates. You think of home, a place of warmth, but letters are rare, and the empire's vastness swallows them. Trajan's campaigns, pushing into Parthia, depend on these towers, yet you feel like a speck in Rome's grand design. The bucellum in your pack is your only meal, its hardness a reminder of scarcity. A flicker in the distance, a jackal or raider, sets your heart racing, but it's nothing. leaving you to the monotony again. As dawn hints on the horizon, Sextus's torch approaches, signaling relief. The empire's borders, its roads and forts, were secured by men who stood watch like you, their vigilance unseen. But as Drusus climbs to join you, his breath visible in the cold, a question lingers. How do you stay vigilant when the endless watch drains your spirit and every moment tests your nerve? Dawn paints the Parthian frontier, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, stand weary atop your watchtower, the endless watch finally nearing its end. It's 100 AD, and the plain below is quiet. No Parthian raiders in sight. Your lorica segmentata is heavy, your gladius a cold comfort, but you've held your post through the night's solitude and danger. The legion's vigilance, its ability to guard Rome's edges, rests on sentries like you. This is the legionary's silent sacrifice, enduring the watch's toll. What did it mean to stand guard, and what does it teach us about duty? You've adapted to the watch's demands. Drusus, your Thracian tentmate, taught you to shift your weight hourly to ease aching legs, a trick that kept you alert. Your 8 men rotating shifts shares small comforts, a shared flask of pasca, a jest to break the silence. Sextus, the centurion, commends your vigilance with a nod, a rare gesture. Historical records, like Tacitus's histories, note the importance of watchtowers, but they omit the strain, eyes burning, mind wrestling with fear and boredom, body worn by armor. The watch's toll is subtle but real. You've seen sentries falter, dozing off, earning Sextus's lash. Others grow paranoid, mistaking shadows for enemies, their nerves frayed. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' lives, notes of cold nights, pleas for cloaks. You, too, feel the ache, memories of home fade, replaced by the tower's stone walls. Trajan's empire, its frontiers stretching thousands of miles, depended on men who stood watch, their alertness saving forts from ambush. Yet, and the promise of retirement land after 25 years feels distant. Resilience grows from necessity. You've learned to scan methodically, to breathe slowly, to calm your heart, to trust Drusus's signals below. The contubernums bond his quiet songs, your shared rations, you, the legion's strength, its ability to hold Parthia, rested on sentries who endured this vigil. You're part of that legacy, a guardian of Rome's edge, your watch, a thread in the empire's fabric. As you descend the tower, relief arriving, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The frontiers, now ruins like Hadrian's Wall, were held by men who watched through endless nights. Today, we marvel at Rome's reach, but rarely the sentries who bore its weight. Their vigilance, their endurance, shaped history. Ponder this. In our connected world, could you stand such a watch? The legionaries' duty, their strength in solitude, speaks to a human capacity for steadfastness. What does it teach us about the unseen guardians of progress? And how do we honor those who kept watch in silence? Story 14. The Cost of Discipline. Punishment in the ranks hour, a legionary in Trajan's army. Dear listener, stationed in a fortified camp in Germania, 100 AD, the Roman Empire's legions are a marvel of discipline. Their conquests driven by iron order, but that order comes at a cost. As you stand in formation, your lorica segmentata gleaming, you witness the price of failure, punishment. The legion's strength depends on absolute obedience, enforced through brutal measures that bind and break men alike. This is the Legionaries. Harsh reality. Discipline is both your shield and your scourge, a force that shapes every moment. The buccina sounds at dawn, summoning your centuriati men, including your contubernium, to the camp's center. Your centurion, Aulus, stands before a trembling legionary, a Gaul named Cassius, accused of sleeping on watch. The punishment, as Polybius's histories describe, is fustuarium, death by cudgels from his own comrades. Aulus's vine staff points to the ground, his voice cold. Discipline holds the empire. You grip your gladius, uneasy, as Cassius pleads. Historical records, like Tacitus's annals, note that Roman discipline was unmatched, but they rarely detail its cruelty. Your day is routine, polishing armor, digging latrines, eating bucellum and posca, but the threat of punishment looms. The legion's code is strict. Disobedience or cowardice can mean flogging, decimation, or execution. Your tentmate, a Greek named Nikos, whispers of a friend lashed for losing a pilum, his back scarred for weeks. The legion's diversity goals, Greeks, Africans unites under this rigid order, but fear binds you as much as loyalty. Trajan's campaigns, pushing into Germania, rely on men who obey without question. You've seen lesser punishments, extra duties, reduced rations, or the shame of carrying a yoke. Nikos teaches you to double-check your gear to avoid Aulus's wrath, a small act to dodge the lash. The Eagle Standard, the camp's rhythm drills, marches, inspections, sin forces, discipline, but also dread. Cassius's fate hangs over you, a reminder of the cost of a single mistake. As evening falls, you stand guard, the camp's torches flickering. The empire's might its roads, its victories rests on disciplined legions, but at what price? As Nikos sharpens his gladius beside you, a question gnaws. How do you endure a life where discipline demands perfection and punishment awaits any slip? The Germania camp hums with tension, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, feel the weight of discipline's iron grip. It's 100 AD, and the memory of Cassius's punishment fustuarium for sleeping on watch lingers. As you march in formation, your lorica segmentata clanks, your scutum shield heavy, but heavier still is the fear of failing the legion's unforgiving code. Discipline, the bedrock of Rome's conquests, is enforced through punishment that can break body and spirit. This is the soldier's stark truth. Obedience is survival, but it comes at a steep cost. Aulus, your centurion, drills the century relentlessly, his vine staff a constant threat. Today, you're building a rampart, hauling stones under his watchful eye. A stumble could mean a flogging, as Suetonius's accounts of Roman camps describe. Your contubernium, including Nikos, your Greek tentmate, works in silence, wary of mistakes. Nikos shares a trick: keep your tools in sight to avoid accusations of negligence, a lesson born of fear. Historical records, like those in Cassius Dio, praise the legion's order, but they skip the dread, the lashes sting, the shame of public punishment. Punishment is omnipresent. You've seen men flogged for tardiness, their backs raw, or forced to dig latrines alone for losing gear. Every 10th man for a unit's failure looms as a rare but terrifying threat, as in Crassus's campaigns. The legion's strength Its ability to hold Germania rests on this discipline, but it isolates you. Nikos speaks of home, a coastal village, but the sacramentum oath binds you to Rome, and breaking it means death. Trajan's empire, its frontiers, secure, demands your perfection, enforced by Aulus's unyielding gaze. The day's labor ends with a meal of bucellum and pasca, the hard biscuit and sour drink, a reminder of austerity. The legion's diversity, men from every province unites under this code. But punishment divides, pitting fear against camaraderie. You've avoided the lash, but the threat shapes every action. The eagle standard, gleaming in the camp, is your pride, but failing it invites ruin. As you repair your Caligay boots, torn from the march, you hear whispers of another punishment, tomorrow a legionary caught stealing rations. As night falls, you stand watch, the camp's silence heavy. The empire's glory, its vast dominion, was built by disciplined men, but the cost is clear, a life under the shadow of punishment. As Nikos paces nearby, a question burns. How do you stay loyal to a system where discipline is both your strength and your cage, and one mistake could cost everything? Night cloaks the Germania camp, dear listener, and you sit by a fire, the sting of discipline's shadow ever present. It's 100 AD, and the day's labor hauling stones, drilling under Aulus's vine staff, has left you weary, but the fear of punishment lingers. The legion's strength, its ability to conquer Germania, rests on iron discipline, enforced through floggings, shame, and death. You've survived, but the cost of obedience scars the soul. This is the legionary's silent burden, living under a code that builds empires but breaks men. What did it mean to endure this? And what does it teach us about sacrifice? You've adapted to discipline's demands. Nikos, your Greek tentmate, taught you to salute sharply, to avoid Aulus's wrath, a small act to dodge punishment. Your 8 men, bound by duty, shares tricks, polish armor nightly, hide mistakes to survive inspections. Aulus, stern but fair, once spared a man the lash for honesty, a rare mercy. Historical records, like Tacitus's histories, laud Roman discipline, but they omit the toll. Backs scarred, spirits crushed, men executed for minor faults. The eagle standard, your legion's heart, demands perfection, and failure invites ruin. The cost is steep. You've seen comrades flogged, their cries echoing or shamed before the century for losing gear. The fustuarium, as with Cassius, haunts you comrades forced to kill a friend. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' fears, pleas for leniency, dread of the lash. You, too, feel it teach, order followed, each step precise, to avoid punishment. Trajan's empire, its triumphs carved in stone, was built on such discipline, but it demands your freedom. The promise of retirement land after 25 years feels hollow when survival hinges on flawlessness. Resilience grows from fear. You've learned to anticipate Aulus's inspections, to march through pain, to bury doubts. The contuberniums, bond Nikos's jests, shared Poskeses the strain. The legion's might, its ability to hold provinces, rested on men who endured this code, their obedience unwavering. You're part of that legacy, a soldier shaped by discipline's harsh hand, upholding Rome's dream. As you stand guard, the camp quiet, but for the fire's crackle, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The empire's victories, its roads and forts, were forged by men who bore punishment's weight. Today, we admire Rome's order, but rarely the soldiers who paid its price. Their sacrifice, their endurance, shaped history. Ponder this. In our world of choice, could you live under such discipline? The legionaries' obedience, their strength, despite punishment, speaks to a human capacity for duty. What does it teach us about the cost of order, and how do we honor those who bore it for a greater cause? Story 15. The Weight of Survival. Rebuilding after battle. You're a legionary in Trajan's army. Dear listener, trudging through a ravaged Dacian village in 100 AD, the air thick with smoke. The Roman Empire's legions have just won a brutal victory. But now you face the aftermath, rebuilding a camp amidst the wreckage of war. Your lorica segmentata is dented, your gladius still stained, and your body aches from battle. Survival is a triumph, but it carries a weighty constructing order from chaos, mending wounds, and facing the ghosts of those lost. This is the legionary's silent struggle, carrying the burden of survival to rebuild. Rome's presence. Dawn breaks over the scarred landscape, and your centurion, Marcus, orders your centurati men, including your contubernium, to fortify a new camp. You wield a delabra, digging ditches and raising palisades, as described in Vegetus's De Re Militari. The village, once Dacian, is now Rome's. Its huts burned, its people fled or dead. Your tentmate, a Briton named Carwin, helps you drive stakes, his face grim from yesterday's slaughter. Historical records, like Cassius Dio's accounts, praise Roman efficiency in securing conquered lands, but they skip the exhaustion, sore muscles, haunted eyes. The task is relentless, clearing debris, erecting tents, tending wounded. Devalitude. A makeshift hospital echoes with moans as Medici bind gashes. You carry a comrade, his arm broken. To the medics, his thanks, a weak nod. The legion's strength, its ability to hold Dacia, depends on this rebuilding, but survival feels fragile. Carwin teaches you to knot ropes tighter for sturdier tents, a small act to anchor you. The legions, diversity Britons, Illyrians, Numidians unites in labor, but the weight of survival isolates, each man wrestling with memories of battle. You pause to eat bucellum, its hardness, a reminder of scarcity, and sip posca, its sourness, grounding you. Trajan's campaigns, expanding Rome's borders, rely on men like you to rebuild after victory. The eagle's standard, raised in the camp's center, is your rallying point, but the cost of survival, friends, buried, villages razed, as you hammer a stake, the smoke stinging your eyes. A question gnaws: how do you rebuild not just a camp, but yourself, when survival's weight feels heavier than the battle itself? The Dacian sun climbs higher, dear listener, and you, a legionary, in Trajan's army, labor to rebuild a camp amidst the ruins of a conquered village. It's 100 AD, and your lorica segmentata is scarred from battle, your scutum shield propped nearby. The victory over the Dacians was hard won, but survival's weight presses harder, reconstructing order, tending wounds, and burying the dead. The legion's mission to secure Rome's new frontier demands this work, but the toll of survival, both physical and mental, tests your endurance. This is the soldier's unseen burden, rebuilding after slaughter, carrying the scars of victory. Marcus, your centurion, drives the century to raise fortifications, his vine staff snapping at slacars. You dig trenches with your delabra, sweat mixing with dust as your contubernum, including Carwin, your Briton tentmate, hauls timber for palisades. Carwin shows you to brace posts with stones for stability, a trick learned from his tribal days. Historical records, like those in Tacitus's Annals, describe Rome's rapid fort building, but they omit the cost, blistered hands, aching backs, and memories of fallen comrades. The valetudinarium's cries pierce the air. Where Medici amputate limbs to save lives, the camp takes shaped, tents aligned, ditches deepened, but the village's ruins haunt you. Charred huts and scattered Dacian belongings remind you of the lives destroyed. You've buried legionaries today, their names scratched on wooden markers, a task that silences your contubernum. Trajan's empire, its frontiers stretching to Dacia, depends on this labor, but survival feels hollow. The legion's diversity binds you men from across provinces, sharing Pascha and Bucellum, but the weight of what you've seen divides you inwardly, each man grappling alone. A brief rest brings no relief. You chew hard Bucellum, sip sour Pascha, and check your gladius, its edge dulled from battle. The eagle standard, gleaming in the camp's heart, is your pride, but rebuilding tests your spirit. You've seen men falter, refusing to dig, their minds broken by battle's toll, earning Marcus's lash. Carwin speaks of his homeland's green hills, a fleeting escape from this grim work. The empire's glory, its forts and roads, rises from such labor, but the cost is yours to bear as dusk settles. Marcus inspects the ramparts, nodding at your progress. The camp stands, a testament to Rome's might, but survival's weight lingers. As Carwin ties another knot beside you, a question burns. How do you rebuild a life after battle, when the scars of survival run deeper than any wound? Night falls over the new Dacian camp, dear listener, and you, a legionary in Trajan's army, sit by a fire, the weight of survival heavy on your shoulders. It's 100 AD, and the camp is built, tents raised, ditches dug, but your lorica segmentata carries battle scars, and your heart carries more. The victory over the Dacians secured Rome's frontier, but rebuilding has tested you, burying friends, fortifying ruins, and facing the toll of survival. This is the legionary's silent sacrifice, rebuilding after war, carrying the cost of living on. What did it mean to endure this, and what does it teach us about resilience? You've adapted to the labor, Carwin, your Briton tentmate, taught. You too pack dirt tightly around palisades, steadying your hands against memories of slaughter. Your contubernum, 8 men bound by battle, shares the work-hauling stones, tending wounded, honoring the dead. Marcus, the centurion, offers rare praise for your ramparts, a nod to your endurance. Historical records, like Dio's accounts, celebrate Trajan's conquests, but they skip the aftermath. Graves dug, screams from the valetudinarium, survivors haunted by what they've done. Survival's toll is profound. You've seen men break, staring blankly at ruins, unable to work, their spirits crushed. Others drink stolen wine, risking Marcus's wrath. Vindolanda tablets reveal soldiers' struggles, letters mourning losses, pleas for strength. You, too, carry ghosts, comrades, fallen Dacian faces frozen in death. Trajan's empire, its forts rising from ashes, was built by men who survived and rebuilt, but the cost is personal. The promise of retirement land after 25 years feels distant when each day demands you face yesterday's horrors. Resilience grows from necessity. You've learned to focus on tasks sharpening your gladius, eating bacillum to anchor yourself. The contuberniums bond Carwin's tales, shared Posca holds you together. The legion's strength, its ability to secure Dacia, rested on men who rebuilt through grief. You're part of that legacy, a survivor forging Rome's dream amidst wreckage as you stand guard. The camp quiet, but for the fire's glow, you reflect on Rome's legacy. The empire's frontiers, now ruins, were rebuilt by men who bore survival's weight. Today, we admire Rome's triumphs, but rarely the soldiers who carried its scars. Their resilience, their ability to rebuild, shaped history. Ponder this. In our world of comfort, could you bear survival's cost? The legionary's strength, their endurance through loss, speaks to a human capacity for perseverance. What does it teach us about rebuilding after hardship? And how do we honor those who carried the weight of survival in silence?